Then I went to Douluo. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451, The Third Elder of Haoshan. After seeing Tang Qing, the disciples of Haoshan sect all cast their eyes over and then gathered around him. Those of similar age, and those who are younger. Brother Tang Qing is back. Is Shrek Academy fun? What's the fun in Shrek Academy? Is the food in the cafeteria there better than the one in our sect? Blah blah. The older ones asked with a smile. Brother, are you used to Shrek Academy? Tell us, is Shrek Academy really full of geniuses? Some people also noticed Yun's behind Tang Qing, and asked curiously, Qing, who is this? Is he your classmate from Shrek Academy? Tang Qing answered one by one with a smile, and Yun's introduced himself and said with a smile, Hello, brothers and juniors, my name is Yun's, and I'm Tang Qing's classmate. Tang Qing added, and he's my roommate. The other disciples of Haoshan sect immediately greeted them with a smile. Welcome, welcome, Haoshan sect welcomes you to be our guest. The enthusiasm of the disciples of Haoshan sect did surprise Yun's, but he was able to handle it and also answered their questions with a smile. After thinking that the time was almost up, Tang Qing smiled and drove away the disciples of Haoshan sect, saying, Alright, be quiet, be careful not to scare my roommate away. Let me tell you, my roommate is not ordinary. He is the Grand Marshal of Douluo Empire, the Duke of White Tiger, right? He's from the Duke's mansion. Be careful that he will target you when you come out of the mountain in the future. Yun smiled helplessly. How can it be so exaggerated? As a result, after Tang Qing said this, the disciples of Haoshan sect did not want to leave even more, and all surrounded Yun's, asking questions like Are you really from the Duke's mansion? Then is your martial spirit the evil-eyed White Tiger? So you are the son of the Duke of White Tiger? There were also a few who were probably more aggressive and asked to fight him. Yun felt that he could not cope with it at this moment, and Tang Qing did not expect such a situation to happen, and he was a little anxious for a while. Then, they heard a gloomy voice coming over. Why are you all gathered here instead of practicing? As soon as this voice sounded, all the disciples of the Haoshan sect, including Tang Qing, looked frozen. After hearing this voice, the disciples of the Haoshan sect who were originally surrounding Yun's quickly dispersed and returned to their original positions to concentrate on doing what they were doing, as if nothing had happened just now. Yun's looked in the direction where the voice came from, and then on the rooftop of the second floor, he saw a young man with a sinister look, looking at the disciples of the Haoshan sect below with a serious look. The young man's appearance was not bad, with clear edges and corners, but I don't know if it was because his lips were always tightly pursed. This young man looked very sinister, which gave Yun's a very bad feeling, as if he was a venomous snake that was always dormant and vigilantly exploring the surroundings, making Yun's feel that he was very dangerous. The young man had short black hair, and his eyes were like the abyss, or the night itself, and because of the light, they were covered with a layer of shadow. When he stared at a person, he could make people feel as if they were facing a great enemy and falling into an ice cave. It was just like the subconscious reaction of ordinary people when they saw snakes, scorpions, centipedes, and other animals that made people lose their sanity. But what made Yun's even more puzzled was that in addition to being a little afraid of the young man, he actually felt a sense of closeness that he himself couldn't figure out. On the one hand, he wanted to stay away from the young man, and on the other hand, he wanted to know more about the young man. In short, Yun's felt very conflicted now. Not long after, the young man also looked over, and then his eyes met Yun's. The bodies of the young man and Yun's shook at the same time, and then they both looked at each other in surprise. Yun's felt a sudden and strange resonance, and while he was shocked, he also had unstoppable doubts in his heart. He looked at the young man, and for the first time, he wondered curiously, who is he? The young man's expression darkened. He seemed to be thinking about something, but he gave people the feeling that he was about to get angry. And when he was thinking, his dark eyes became deeper, and he looked a little scary. After a moment, the young man seemed to have made a decision. Without any special movements, he appeared in front of Yun's in a flash. Looking at this familiar scene, Yun slowly asked a question in his mind. The young man was wearing a black and gray robe. It should be a very inconspicuous outfit, but the whole person became extraordinary because of his extraordinary appearance and well-proportioned figure. When he was far away, Dayun's thought that the young man looked a little gloomy and unpleasant, but now that he was right in front of him and close to him, Dayun's also realized that the young man in front of him might just be a bit taciturn, which led to a lack of rich expressions on his face, which made people feel a little gloomy, but he actually looked very handsome. Just as Dayun's was thinking, Tang Qing beside him also hurriedly bowed to the young man and said, "Third elder." The young man called the third elder just waved slightly at Tang Qing, ignored him, and kept looking down at Dayun's, still looking thoughtful. Although Dayun's felt a little uncomfortable being looked at by the young man, he still bowed to him like Tang Qing to show respect, and also said hello, senior. After all, according to Tang Qing's third elder just now, this person should be one of the elders of the Haoshan sect, although Dayun's thought that he looked only in his 20s, about the same age as the disciples of the Haoshan sect not far away. But he also understood that in the world of soul masters, one cannot judge a soul master's age by appearance alone. Just like this third elder, although he looks to be in his 20s, his actual age may be over 100. After Dayun straightened up again, the young man, the third elder, finally spoke. He stared at Dayun's closely. God-devouring evil-eye white demon tiger. Dayun's was horrified, but after all, he was taught by Long Xiaoyao, so the expression on his face did not change. But he still couldn't help but wonder. Why was his secret so easily seen? Dayun's looked at the young man with a puzzled look and asked, "Senior, what are you talking about?" Chapter 452 The Second Stunning Elder. The young man was still staring at him. Your martial soul. Tang Qing saw that something seemed wrong, so he quickly stepped forward and said, "Third elder, did you make a mistake? Dayun's martial soul is his eyes, not that god-devouring evil eyes white demon tiger." Dayun's also nodded quickly, looked at the young man with sincere eyes, and said, "Yes, if senior, you are talking about my martial soul is indeed not the god-devouring evil eyes white demon tiger you said, but my eyes." However, what made Dayun's distressed was that even though he denied it, the young man still stared at him and said, "Then you are the twin martial soul, I won't be wrong." Then, he seemed to be a little slow to react, and there was a hint of surprise in his expression when he looked at Dayun's eyes, the original martial soul, Dayun's, being interrupted by him. Dayun's didn't know which sentence he should respond to first. So he paused, and said helplessly, "Yes, senior, my martial soul is the main body martial soul, the eyes." He skipped the topic of the twin martial souls, and also wanted to see if he could get away with it. Dayun saw the young man frown slightly, with a trace of embarrassment in his expression, and then said to himself, "Then none of us has spiritual attributes, don't we have to find someone else?" But the next moment, his expression returned to normal, looking at Dayun's and said, "That's not what I care about. Just tell me, are you the god-devouring evil-eye white demon tiger?" Dayun's didn't expect that after going around in a circle, it would still come back to him, and it seemed that the third elder was still unwilling to give up. Of course, Dayun's couldn't just admit it, so he said, "No, after all, he only had the martial soul of the god-devouring evil-eye white demon tiger, and he himself was not the god-devouring evil-eye white demon tiger." Although Dayun's expression was sincere and his tone was not fluctuating, the young man still said, "You are lying." Dayun's. Tang Qing didn't know what to do now. He scratched the back of his head, looking at Dayun's for a while, and then looking at his third elder who suddenly became crazy today, feeling very melancholy. He had vowed to Dayun's before that his three elders were easy to get along with, but today, as soon as they met, Dayun's was questioned by the third elder in an impolite manner. What if Dayun's impression of Haoshan sect became worse because of this? But although the third elder was usually quiet and always had a sullen face, as if someone had provoked him, he was really good to them, the younger generation. Why did he suddenly become weird today? Just when the atmosphere was a little awkward, another voice came from the rooftop on the second floor. "You little black tiger, don't get so excited when you see people. Be careful not to scare people away. Let's see what you can do then. It's useless even if you go to the sect master to cry." The voice was very crisp, but the tone was lazily and charming, like a cat stretching its body in the morning and afternoon sunshine, making people feel itchy. Dayun's and Tang Qing looked at the rooftop on the second floor at the same time, and then saw a beautiful woman who was about the same age as the third elder in front of them. The woman had loose black hair, but there were two strands of green hair full of vitality on her forehead, which flowed down along the ends of her hair and were pinned behind her ears. The woman's face shape and facial features were very delicate, and she was full of charm. A pair of fox eyes, and the irises were also jade-like green. Although her eyes were slightly narrowed, giving people a lazy feeling, but from time to time, a hint of cunning would flash in her eyes, and with the charm of her face, it was extremely attractive. Anyway, Dai-Yun's was stunned for a moment when he saw it, especially when the woman's eyes lingered on him with interest, her plump red lips slightly raised, bringing out one side of her tender apple cheeks, her beautiful fox eyes slightly narrowed, and the kind of smile with her chin slightly raised was very lustful. Dai-Yun's blushed a little bit when he saw it. Compared to Dai-Yun's, who was a little bit unable to control himself, Tang Qing was undoubtedly much better. Maybe it was because he was used to it. After seeing the woman with half of her curvy body sticking out from the second floor, he quickly bowed and said, "Second elder." The woman smiled and waved at Tang Qing, saying, "Little Aking is back? Remember to find your eldest elder to settle the task later, and leave this to us." Tang Qing did not leave immediately, and glanced at Dai-Yun's. Although there was still some distance, the woman still saw Tang Qing's little move clearly, and smiled. "It must be this little guy. Didn't you see that your third elder was so excited?" Tang Qing looked at the third elder who was staring at Dai-Yun's in front of him, and hesitated to speak. Forgive him for being frank, he really didn't see how the third elder was excited, but he looked like he wanted to give Dai-Yun's a good time. But in the end, he didn't say anything, just patted Dai-Yun's on the shoulder, and then turned and left. Dai-Yun's glanced at Tang Qing, who had already walked a long way away, and it was a little unbelievable that he left him here, but in the end he just sighed helplessly, looking at the third elder who was still staring at him in front of him, and then looked at the woman on the second floor rooftop. The woman smiled, and for a moment she was charming again, and then said, "Little black tiger, bring him up." Dai-Yun subconsciously looked at the young man in front of him, took a step back, and was wary of his possible actions that might be detrimental to him. But he was obviously overthinking, because the young man didn't touch him at all. After the woman finished speaking, she nodded slightly. The next moment, Dai-Yun found that he had appeared behind the woman on the second floor rooftop, and the young man was standing next to him. When he got closer, Dai-Yun realized that the woman in a green robe was tall, much taller than he was now, but only about half a head shorter than the young man next to him. Similarly, even her loose robe could not cover the woman's graceful body curves. When the woman slowly walked in front of him, Dai-Yun was so nervous that he almost forgot to breathe, because the woman in front of him was so beautiful, and the kind of pure temperament on her body was also a little difficult for him to resist. The woman looked at Dai-Yun, who was a little out of control, raised her hand to half cover her red lips, smiled gently, and her fox eyes curved into a beautiful crescent, and said, "Don't be so nervous, come with us." Then, she looked at the young man next to Dai-Yun. The young man nodded, then turned around and walked to the front to lead the way. The woman smiled in her eyes and raised her hand to signal Dai-Yun. Her movements were full of etiquette and elegance, but Dai-Yun could still see the charm. For the first time, he felt a little helpless. He scratched his head, smiled awkwardly at the woman, and followed the young man as if escaping. I'm late, sorry. It was mainly because I was stuck for an hour writing about the second elder, otherwise I would have had another chapter today, forward. But guess who this second elder is? Dodge, the author is going to continue writing. See you tomorrow. Thank you to my friends who voted for me for recommendations and monthly tickets. Love you guys. Chapter 453 Great Elder. Looking at Dai-Yun, who was running away, the stunning woman, the second elder, smiled again and said to herself, I thought the people there were like that guy Tang Liu, but in fact they are almost the same as the humans here. After that, she chuckled and shook her head, took a step, and followed the third elder and Dai-Yun in front. Under the leadership of the young man, Dai-Yun first walked through the corridor, came to the stairs and continued to go up. Along the way, they naturally met many disciples of the Haoshan sect. After seeing them, those disciples of the Haoshan sect also bowed to the young man and the woman, and then looked at Dai-Yun, who was sandwiched between the two elders, curiously. Some disciples stopped to watch for a long time, and the woman laughed and scolded them. What's so good about it? Hurry up and do your own things. The scolded disciples were not annoyed, and they all ran away with a smile. Seeing this scene, Dai-Yun finally believed what Tang Qing told him, that the three elders in his sect got along well with them, the younger generation. At least for now, Dai-Yun has not noticed the situation of clear class division like in the Duke's mansion. Finally, they came to a room on the top floor of Haoshan Fort. At the woman's signal, Dai-yun sat on a chair in the room. The young man sat opposite him, staring at him tightly, which made Dai-yun's very uncomfortable. The woman in green then poured a cup of tea for Dai-yun's and the young man respectively, and then sat down next to Dai-yun's. Dai-yun's took a sip and felt that the taste of the tea was a little familiar. Then he looked at the two elders of the Haoshan sect and found that they were also looking at him, especially the second elder. The smiling look made Dai-yun's blush inexplicably. He coughed subconsciously and raised the teacup in his hand a little higher, covering half of his face. After adjusting his mood, he said neither humbly nor arrogantly, "Excuse me, two seniors, why did you call me here alone?" The young man opposite him immediately said, "Your martial spirit." However, the second elder next to Dai-yun's laughed and said, "Don't listen to him, we actually have nothing to do with you, we just want to see you." Dai-yun's looked at her puzzledly. "Seniors have known me for a long time." The woman smiled and said, "That's not the case. We only knew the heart you represented before, and today we really met you in person." Dai-yun's felt more and more confused. "What is the heart I represent?" The woman pursed her lips and smiled. She did not explain it to Dai-yun's, but said, "Let others explain this to you. We are just meeting you now and can't reveal too much to you. When the great elder of our sect comes, you can follow him to find the person who can tell you these." Dai-yun's nodded thoughtfully, and then did not speak again. He just drank tea silently and waited for the great elder to come. The second and third elders did not speak again, and also drank tea quietly. Not long after, Dai-yun's heard a somewhat heavy footsteps coming from outside. He cast his eyes to the door of the room, waiting for the person who was coming to appear. The footsteps approached, and the person finally showed up. It was a tall man who was more than 2 meters tall, with a face as sharp as a knife and an axe, a head of golden short hair with a golden texture, tiger eyes of the same color, a straight nose and a square mouth, wearing gray clothes, revealing half of the bronze chest, full of power. The moment he saw this middle-aged man, Dai-yun's heart was alarmed, as if he had encountered something extremely terrifying, so he looked at the middle-aged man with a little fear and caution. The middle-aged man also noticed Dai-yun's in the room at this time, and saw the vigilance in his eyes, but he was just slightly stunned, and his steps did not stop. He walked in with a smile on his face, obviously not caring about Dai-yun's performance. The middle-aged man walked straight to the first seat in the room and sat down, then looked at Dai-yun's and said with a smile, "Is this the human boy that Liu Zi mentioned?" The woman next to Dai-yun's nodded and also smiled. "Yes, didn't you see that the little black tiger is so excited?" The blond middle-aged man also laughed heartily twice, then looked at Dai-yun's who was a little confused, and said, "My friend, don't be nervous, we will not harm you, on the contrary, we have been prepared to help you a long time ago." After he said this, Dai-yun's became more confused, but he could still feel that the three elders had no ill will towards him. He would be afraid of the middle-aged man who came in last, perhaps just because the other party's strength was too strong, so he said, "Please help me solve my doubts." The middle-aged man smiled slightly and said, "Let me introduce myself first. My name is Jin Chen. I am currently the Grand Elder of the Haoshan sect. You can also call me Jin D." As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, the second elder beside Dai-yun's continued, "My name is Funi, and I am now the second elder of Haoshan sect." When Dai-yun's looked over, the beautiful second elder named Funi smiled at him. She had never done anything deliberately, but there was a kind of charm coming out of her. Dai-yun's quickly looked away. Funi looked at Dai-yun's embarrassment and smiled helplessly, but her eyes looking at Dai-yun's were more of a teasing look. Then she looked at the third elder sitting opposite Dai-yun's, tilted her head and nodded, and said with a smile, "Little black tiger, do you want to do it yourself, or do you want me to help you?" The third elder's eyes, which had been glued to Dai-yun's, moved away for a moment and looked at the second elder Funi. Then a thoughtful look appeared on his face, and then he looked at Dai-yun's again, nodded slightly at him, and said, "I am the dark demon evil god tiger, Dai-yun's, Jin Chen." Funi, looking at Dai-yun's unbelievable look at the third elder, Funi couldn't help but hold her forehead, and then complained, "So you still can't remember your name, little black tiger? It's been so many years." Jin Chen couldn't help but smile at the young man, and said to Funi, "Little Funi, don't blame me. You have been calling me little black tiger for so many years. Isn't it your fault that he can't remember it?" Funi pouted and snorted, then said to Dai-yun's, "Don't worry about it. Little black tiger has just recovered and is still a little slow in all aspects. As for his name, you can just call him Izzy." At this time, The young man, the third elder, retorted, "My name is Kingaya." Seeing Daiyun's and Funi looking at him at the same time, he frowned slightly and said, "Not Ezzy, I'm sorry, the author is seriously depressed today, and I really can't squeeze out any more. This chapter has stuck for me for 3 hours, mainly stuck on the name of the person. I'm so tired that I'm lying down with my face covered. See you tomorrow." Tang Liu can also show up. The author will leave today. Sorry. Thank you to my friends who voted for me for the recommendation and monthly tickets. Love you. Chapter 454 Blue Silver Valley. Daiyun's didn't care what they were called. He was still confused about the name the young man had mentioned before. Even though he could hear the teasing of the first elder Jin Chen and the second elder Funi, he ignored it and just looked at the young man who said his name was Kingaya. One guess after another kept popping up in his mind. After the teasing in his ears became quieter, Daiyun subconsciously asked, "So, senior, the third elder is?" The one who answered him was the first elder Jin Chen. "It's just as you think. Kingaya's body is a dark evil god tiger," Daiyun thought to himself. It's true. After a pause, he thought of something else. After thinking for a moment, he decided to ask. He looked at the third elder and said, "Excuse me, senior, are you a soul beast that has been reborn as a human?" Kingaya shook his head and said, "No, I am a soul beast." Daiyun's was immediately trembling. "So, senior, you are a dark evil god tiger that has cultivated for more than 200,000 years. Before he heard Kingaya's reply, he heard the second elder Funi beside him also laughed and said, "Not only is he a soul beast, but Jinbi and I are also soul beasts." Daiyun's turned his head unsmoothly like a puppet and looked at Funi and Jin Chen, his pupils shaking. Funi covered her face and chuckled, "My original body is a 200,000-year-old jade fox, about 10,000 years older than the little black tiger, so I am the second elder. As for Jinbi, his qualifications are much older than ours. He is now 300,000 years old and almost 400,000 years old. His original body is the Emperor Golden Tiger, the king of the Golden Tiger clan. His bloodline is much better than mine. Only the little black tiger can compare to him." Daiyun looked at the elder Jin Chen and found that he was smiling and nodding to him. No wonder he felt dangerous when he first saw him. It turned out that he was a powerful soul beast that was almost 400,000 years old. It is reasonable for him to feel dangerous when such a beast king-level existence appeared in front of a small soul master like him. Moreover, he also has a martial soul called the God-eating evil eye white demon tiger, which is also a tiger-type soul beast. Perhaps it was also suppressed by the Golden Emperor, which gave him a feeling of great fear. But now, Daiyun is a little confused. Although he doesn't know why these three revealed their soul beast identities to him so easily, these three are fierce beasts over 200,000 years old after all. He, a human soul master, always feels that his life will be in danger at any time when mixed in with them. Fortunately, these three really have no hostility towards him, otherwise Daiyun would have wanted to leave and escape at the speed of light. After the doubts and fears passed, Daiyun began to be curious. On the one hand, he was curious about why these three fierce beasts were in the Haoshan sect and became the elders of the Haoshan sect. This seems to be vaguely in line with the Haoshan sect in the original book, but in the Haoshan sect over there, the Sky Blue Bull Python Gaming and the Titan Giant Abraming are the sect masters. On the other hand, this is Kingaya, the third elder of the Dark Demon Evil God Tiger. Daiyun is mainly curious about him. He still remembered what the young man surnamed Tang told him, that his martial soul, the God-devouring Evil Eye White Devil Tiger, was a mutation of the Evil Eye White Tiger. And it was the same origin as the Dark Demon Evil God Tiger, and they were two different branches in the same direction. Moreover, he once got an energy core of the Dark Demon Evil God Tiger from the young man surnamed Tang, and he was still slowly absorbing it. And what a coincidence that the second task that the young man surnamed Tang gave him was to come to the Haoshan sect. Now he has arrived, and found that in this Haoshan sect, which he didn't know whether it was true or not, there was a third elder who is transformed from the Dark Demon Evil God Tiger with 200,000 years of cultivation. Daiyun certainly didn't think that all this was just a coincidence. All of this, almost everything related to him, was arranged long ago. So, where's the young man surnamed Tang who created all this? I don't know if he saw Daiyun's doubts, or it was just time, so the great elder Jin Chen said, "I have seen it. I think Liuzi should be here soon. Let's go, my friend, I will take you to see him." Seeing Jin Chen stand up, Dai Yun's also stood up and followed the Emperor Golden Tiger out. As for the Jade Fox Funi and the Dark Demon Evil God Tiger Kingaya, they did not follow and stayed in the Haoshan sect. Dai Yun's and the Emperor Golden Tiger walked to the square below together, and then the Emperor Golden Tiger took Dai Yun's up into the sky and flew rapidly towards the mountains behind Haoshan Castle. Under the protection of the Emperor Golden Tiger's soul power, Dai Yun's did not feel the strong wind during the rapid flight, and even felt the same as standing on the ground, even though the rocks and trees under his feet were flashing backwards at a rapid speed, proving how fast he was at this time. Along the way, Dai Yun's did not ask the Golden Emperor next to him where he was taking him, and who the sixth son he wanted to meet was. Because these questions will all be solved when we reach the destination, asking now is completely unnecessary. Finally, after flying for an unknown distance, Dai Yun's found that their flying speed was gradually slowing down, and finally, they slowly landed in front of a valley. Jin Chen removed the gravity field that protected Dai Yun's, raised his head towards the entrance of the valley in front of him, gestured to Dai Yun's, and said, "He's waiting for you inside, go in." Dai Yun's glanced at him, nodded, and then walked into the valley. Jin Chen looked at Dai Yun's back gradually disappearing in the lush blue-silver grass, smiled, and disappeared from the spot in a flash. When he was outside the valley, Dai Yun's found that the blue-silver grass in this valley was extremely lush, and the bright blue grass leaves almost submerged his entire legs. Looking around, there were many crystal-like blue vines clinging to the cliffs on both sides of the valley. Obviously, they were blue-silver grass that had transformed into soul beasts. Moreover, in this valley, there must be a huge number of blue-silver grass that had evolved into soul beasts like this. The deeper he went, the more solemn the expression on Dai Yun's face became. As he continued to approach the interior of the valley, the blue-silver grass not only became more luxuriant, but also the vines became thicker and stronger, some of which were even like ancient trees. At the same time, because Dai Yun's was a spiritual soul master, he could vaguely feel the curiosity transmitted from the blue-silver grass around him. Which also proved that from here on, the blue-silver grass around him basically had some spiritual intelligence. In other words, the blue-silver grass around him now was likely to be thousand-year-old soul beasts, and he was now shuttling among a large number of thousand-year-old soul beasts. Chapter 455 Rewards and Conversation. After realizing this, Dai Yun suddenly felt a tingling sensation on his scalp, especially now that the light in the valley was relatively dim. The feeling was even stronger under the atmosphere of the surrounding environment. So Dai Yun couldn't help but speed up his pace, and at the same time, he tried his best to focus all his attention on the present, reducing his observation of the surroundings, so that he could stop thinking about it and focus more on the road and identifying the direction. This trick was indeed effective, and Dai Yun no longer cared whether the blue-silver grass around him was a soul beast. However, in this way, his perception of the changes in the surrounding environment was also reduced to the minimum, and he was unable to discover the blue light that gradually enveloped all the blue-silver grass, like a layer of mist and gauze. When Dai Yun reached out and pushed aside the blue-silver grass that was taller than him, and then saw the familiar house in front of him, he realized that he didn't know when he had entered the space where everything was shrouded in a strange blue-black light. For this reason, he also looked up to confirm, and what he saw was indeed the blue-black sky. When he sighed resignedly, stepped out of the lush blue-silver grass behind him, and planned to walk into the house again, the scene around him changed instantly when his leg landed. He walked out of the blue-silver grass and came to the wooden house hall full of bookshelves and display cabinets with various rare treasures. Of course, his posture was still the same as before when he stood in front of the blue-silver grass and stretched out his hand to push the blue-silver grass aside. After a pause, he returned to his usual standing posture, looked around, walked forward, spread his hand slightly, and shouted, "Can't I just walk over here?" However, as soon as he finished the sentence, he felt the familiar feeling of falling from his feet again. Sure enough, the scene around him changed again, and he himself fell to the ground at the same time. But after all, he was no longer the 6-year-old child who had just awakened his martial spirit and knew nothing. Using the power of space casually, he went from falling down to standing up again, and then his eyes immediately found the young man in blue sitting on the leather sofa in front of him in a relaxed posture. Dai Yun walked towards the young man. "Since you can teleport, please send me directly to you next time. It's not necessary to do it several times just to show off." Then he sat opposite the young man without any hesitation. Tang Liu smiled, his eyes always staring at Dai Yun, watching him walk towards him, and then sit in front of him, and said with a smile, "I just want to mess with you a few more times, nothing else. It's just that it shouldn't work next time." After listening to him, Dai felt angry, and didn't want to talk nonsense with him anymore, so he said, "Now my second task has been completed, tell me, what can you tell me, and what is the reward for this task?" After a few times, Dai has completely learned his lesson, and no longer takes the initiative to speak out the questions in his heart, so as not to be choked by the riddle man's speech again. He directly cuts to the point and lets Tang Liu tell him what he knows now. This way, there would be less unnecessary trouble. Tang Liu lowered his eyes and smiled, following Dai meaning, and said, "Now you know the true identities of the three elders of the Haotian sect. How come you don't have any thoughts about the 200,000-year-old dark demon evil god tiger?" Dai did not deny it, and said, "Yes, but now I am just a soul master. Even if I am given a 200,000-year-old dark demon evil god tiger soul ring, I can't absorb it. What if it is the same method of sealing the origin as when Hao absorbed the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion soul ring?" Tang Liu smiled slightly, and said something that surprised Dai. Of course, Dai couldn't fail to understand what Tang Liu meant by that sentence, but he still found it a little unbelievable, and asked in surprise, "Are you saying?" Tang Liu smiled and nodded, saying, "Just what you think." After getting a positive answer, Dai paused, frowned and said, "No, I can't just let the third elder become my wisdom spirit ring." The smile on Tang Liu's face widened a little, because he is an elder of the Haotian sect. The Haotian sect needs him? Even if he is willing, you won't do it. Dai was obviously stunned by his last sentence, but still shook his head firmly. "Yes, I don't want to." Tang Liu laughed out loud because of his answer, and then said, "Don't worry, I don't mean to let him completely become a spirit ring of your god-devouring evil eye white demon tiger martial spirit now. Wait until you completely absorb the energy core you merged with it before, otherwise it will be wasted. Of course, the spirit ring should also be attached, but there is no rush for the spirit bone for the time being. The two pieces are enough for now." Dai looked at him puzzledly. "Then why did you meet me today? First, I'll give you the reward for the second task." "I just told you what the reward is. I'll give it to you later," Tang Liu said as he raised his hands and crossed them in front of his chin. "Second, I'll tell you something." Before Dai could ask, Tang Liu clapped his hands gently, and the next moment, something that shocked Dai happened. The light in the room they were in gradually dimmed. Along with the darkness came an extremely dazzling light. Everything in the room disappeared into the darkness, and the floor became a bottomless black abyss. Looking up, even the roof was pitch black, with no end in sight. And the light that came with the darkness also made Dai raise his hand to cover his eyes. With his eyes half empty, he barely saw the source of the strong light through his fingers. Then, he was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth, because it was an extremely bright yellow fireball, that is, the sun that hangs high in the sky every day. Then the next moment, a huge shadow suddenly covered over, and Dai subconsciously looked towards the source of the shadow, and then his eyes widened. Because it was a blue planet, gradually hiding the light of the sun, and escaping into the darkness behind it. When the planet completely covered the light of the distant sun, the abyss that was originally pitch black above and under the head, suddenly there were countless dots of light, like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. It was a dazzling sea of stars. At this moment, if Dai still couldn't guess where he was now, he would really think he was a fool. Because here is the universe. The author should have been a little lazy these 2 days, and he couldn't muster the interest and motivation to write. Today, he only wrote 2 chapters intermittently, covering his face with shame. "I am working hard to adjust. See you tomorrow. Thank you to the friends who voted for me for the recommendation and monthly tickets. Love you. Believe that all the doubts and irrationalities you have seen in the previous article will be solved one by one in the future, and the confusion and puzzlement will eventually be connected into a perfect line. Thanks to all the friends who have followed me all the way to now, and who may follow me in the future. The author would like to express his most sincere gratitude to everyone here. Today is the round number of 2 chapters. I forgot to tell you yesterday, so I will make up for it today. I wish you all a happy Chinese Valentine's Day. Gugwa. Chapter 456, Long Conversation in the Universe. Looking at everything around him that was so real, Dai felt unbelievable that he was in the void, but his feet felt solid. He looked at the huge planet that had disappeared into the shadows, his eyes reflecting the vast sea of stars, and murmured, "Is this all real?" Tang Liu stood up, and then the sofa he was sitting on also disappeared into the endless void. It would not be so easy to find it again. He slowly walked to Dayun's side, pondered for a moment, and said, "How should I put it? We are still in my wooden house. Now I just projected the universe to us." Seeing Tang Liu stand up, Dayun did not sit down anymore, and also stood up, saying, "But these look like they are real. I feel like I can touch them directly." As he spoke, he also glanced behind him. Sure enough, the sofa he was sitting on also disappeared, and it seemed that it was not simply hidden. Dayun was also certain that the scene of the universe around him must not be just a projection as Tang Liu said. But it was obvious that Tang Liu had no intention of explaining it in detail. He just said to himself, "What do you think I'm going to talk to you about?" Dayun temporarily put aside the idea of the universe and the sofa and shook his head. "I don't know." Tang Liu smiled slightly, turned his back to Dayun and looked at a certain place in the endless universe. He raised his hand and pointed at the darkness there, then waved his hand in the direction of Dayun's. Then, a thin blue line came from the nothingness and passed between Tang Liu and Dayun's. After quickly passing Tang Liu and Dayun's, it continued to extend into the endless darkness on the other side until it turned into an inconspicuous dot on the boundless universe. Dayun looked at the blue line in front of him, and heard Tang Liu say beside him, "This is what I want to talk to you about." Dayun couldn't help but raise his hand and gently touch the blue line in front of him, which was flowing slowly like a trickle. He watched his fingers pass through it, and then looked up at Tang Liu on the other side of the blue line, and said in surprise, "This is." Tang Liu also raised his hands, holding the blue line in front of him, and looked at it intently, his eyes full of curiosity. He said, "This is the timeline." After a pause, he continued, "The timeline of this universe." Although he had already guessed it in his heart, Dayun was still shocked after hearing Tang Liu's answer in person. He couldn't help but move closer, as if he wanted to see something from the thin blue line in front of him. Tang Liu naturally noticed Dayun's actions, smiled gently, put his hands back behind his back, and said, "You once asked me why I helped you." After hearing this, Dayun's attention returned to Tang Liu, looking at him, quietly waiting for his next words. Tang Liu did not keep the secret and continued, "What I answered you at that time was that you are an outsider. To the high-ranking people in this universe, that is, the gods in the god realm, you are equivalent to the wild gods born in the native planes of this universe, with god-level strength but without godhood and position, that is, aliens. I think you should also know how the god realm deals with these aliens. So, in order to prevent you from dying tragically at the hands of Tang San, the god king who now governs this Douluo star, I choose to help you a little." Dayun also nodded slightly, acknowledging Tang Liu's words, and said, "Then your real purpose is not this." Tang Liu smiled and said, "This is just one point. The reason I help you is more to monitor you." Dayun was obviously stunned. "Monitor me?" Tang Liu did not deny it and nodded, "That's right. As an outsider, your every move in this universe may cause the timeline to branch. If it is a minor branch, it's okay. The timeline's own convergence ability can completely correct and erase the impact it brings, so that the direction of time is roughly consistent with the original, and finally return to the timeline itself. If you do something that seriously disrupts the timeline, the resulting time branch will become uncontrollable, and in the end it may even collide with the original timeline, resulting in a devastating result, the end of the timeline, the destruction of this universe. I think, even you don't want to see the worst ending, right?" At the end, Tang Liu spread his hands and smiled at Dayun. Dayun didn't care about his last sentence. He cared more about what Tang Liu said before. After thinking for a moment, he said, "So, monitoring me is to prevent me from doing something that endangers the stability of the timeline? Can you tell me more specifically?" Just like Tang Liu said, he didn't want to just watch a universe destroyed, not to mention that he now has two cherished people in this world. Tang Liu raised his right hand, tapped the blue line with his index finger, and then opened his palm. The next moment, the blue line in front of him was enlarged several times, directly covering his own and Dayun's bodies. Dayun was in the blue light that flowed along the timeline like a data stream. He couldn't help but look up, slowly turning his body, admiring the orderly flow of light, and watching the light passing through his body with curiosity, and then chasing the light away. "Tang Liu, minor interference? Just like you chose to help Hao Yuhao speak in class." As he said, he also opened his hands and closed them in front of his chest from the upper and lower directions. This action was only for a moment, and the next moment he put his hands down again, But the blue line that had expanded to completely cover the two of them began to shrink inward. Dai Yun's attention was pulled back by Tang Liu's voice, and he just looked at Tang Liu's eyes, and the next moment he was attracted by the blue line that began to shrink. The blue line did not shrink back to its original shape, and finally remained at the height of half of Dai Yun's body. Then, Dai Yun saw that the part of the blue line in front of him gradually extended a thin green line. This green line just emerged a little from the blue line, and then extended forward along the direction of the blue line. Finally, it seemed to be attracted by the blue line. The further it went, the closer it got to the blue line. Since the green line itself did not leave the blue line too much, it did not go far before it returned to the blue line and completely merged with the blue line. After witnessing all these changes, Dai Yun heard Tang Liu's voice again. "Look, this is the tiny branch of the timeline that occurred after you spoke up for Hou Hao that day. Branches like this have no effect on the timeline itself." Chapter 457 Timeline. Dai Yun digested and accepted all of this, and asked, "What about more serious situations?" Tang Liu's eyes were once again cast on the blue timeline. The second one also starts with some minor interference. But because these minor interferences may have a greater impact on that time point, the resulting time branch will deviate more seriously, and the timeline itself will also weaken its convergence force on it, and it will not be able to retract the time branch like the previous situation, resulting in the time branch running parallel to the timeline itself, becoming a new timeline that is the same as the main timeline, but different. Dai Yun listened to Tang Liu's words and paid attention to the changes on the blue line. This time, a yellow line emerged from the blue line. Unlike the previous green line, this time the yellow line extended diagonally outward for a long distance before extending again in the same direction as the blue line, and there was no phenomenon of the green line returning to the blue line itself, but it went to the end of the universe like the blue line. This is already a dangerous situation. Because it is completely separated from the main timeline and parallel to the main timeline, there is still the possibility of further deviation and branching. As Tang Liu said this, the yellow line changed again. The yellow line, which was originally a single line parallel to the blue line, deviated again, and then extended more yellow lines, spreading outward like branches. Dai Yun understood. So, the birth of the yellow line represents the birth of a parallel universe, and once the yellow line branches, it will form a multiverse. Tang Liu nodded. That's almost the case, but it's still a little short of saying multiverse. Because the multiverse also involves the influence of other main timelines, and there are also the last two types of timeline branches. The first is that the time branch completely deviates from the main timeline. Maybe it will be briefly parallel to the main timeline at some moments, but most of it is completely irrelevant to the main timeline. At the same time, Dai Yun also saw a red line emerge from the blue line, and as soon as this red line emerged, it quickly extended outward in a direction that was almost perpendicular to the blue line. The last and most dangerous one is when the branch timeline intersects with the main timeline or other branches, or directly collides. Once this happens, the best outcome is that someone from another timeline accidentally appears on another timeline, or that the two timelines intersect somewhere, allowing the two timelines to communicate with each other. The worst outcome is a multiverse war, or the end of the timeline and the destruction of the universe. When Tang Liu uttered the last syllable, Dai Yun was shocked to find that the timeline, which was originally filled with 4 colors of blue, green, yellow, and red, had all turned into dull black at this time, and then it madly extended more branches outward, like a completely tangled ball of wool, constantly intertwining and colliding, the strong devouring the weak, and the weak besieging the strong. While timelines were constantly being cut off and destroyed, countless new time branches were also formed, and then the process of intertwining, colliding, and destroying continued endlessly. Until the end, all the timelines trembled at the same time, the flowing light stopped. And the next moment, they all exploded and turned into nothingness. Dai Yun's body also trembled violently with the explosion of the timeline. He stared blankly at the endless, cold and dark universe in front of him. He stood there for a long time without any other movement. Now, you know what kind of crisis your existence may cause. Tang Liu curled his lips, smiled lightly, and spoke lightly, awakening Dai Yun from his daze. So please abide by the rules, follow the original time process honestly, and avoid any actions that may cause a major deviation from the timeline. Otherwise, you will not only attract Tang San's attention and bring about a fatal disaster, but I may even kill you before Tang San in order to maintain the stability of the timeline. Tang Liu's last words sounded very heartless, but Dai-Yun's just sighed softly, looked into Tang Liu's eyes, and said, "You are indeed the cosmic will of this universe, right?" Dai-Yun's heard Tang Liu sneer, but he didn't think much about it. He just felt that his guess was just a little bit away from the correct result, and continued, "But I still can't figure it out. Since you are the will of the universe, why are you worried about being discovered by good, evil, and soul kings like Tang San? So, you should not be the complete will of the universe. You should be just an incarnation of the will of the universe, an incarnation that will be killed by these god kings for some reason." Tang Liu smiled and said, "Think whatever you want." Then he turned and walked towards where he had been sitting before. After waving his hand gently, the scene of the surrounding universe quickly disappeared and turned into the scene in the wooden house hall again. He put his hands behind his back and walked to the sofa before turning around again. After sitting down, he looked at Dai-Yun's and smiled. "I have basically said everything I should say. You can leave now." Dai-Yun's looked at his raised right hand and quickly stopped him. "Wait, you haven't given me the third task yet." Tang Liu paused, then laughed and said, "I almost forgot about this." He cleared his throat and continued, "Your third task is to help me find 5 bones on this Douluo continent." Dai-Yun's was stunned for a moment, then frowned and said, "Bones?" Tang Liu changed his sitting position and said, "This third task is not as easy to complete as the first 2. For a long time in the future, you will be on the road to finding these 5 special bones for me. I'm going to find you some extra things to do to prevent you from doing anything that interferes with the timeline." Dai-Yun still frowned, "But if you don't tell me what bones you are looking for, how do I know where to start?" "Tang Liu, you don't need to know the information of the 5 bones. As long as you meet them, I will naturally feel it. But what I can tell you is that the 5 bones are human bones." Dai-Yun frowned a little deeper. "It doesn't sound like a good thing." Tang Liu laughed and said, "Before you say this, please remember one thing." He paused, lowered his head slightly, and showed that malicious smile again, saying, "You are an evil soul master, and you are not a good thing either." After that, without waiting for Dai-Yun's to refute, he waved his hand directly. "You can go." A blue light flashed, and Dai-Yun's figure disappeared. After teleporting Dai-Yun's away, he curled his lips and said, "The will of the universe?" Puff. The last puff is the sound of blowing air out after holding the tip of the tongue with the lips, commonly known as farting with a mouth. When this time theory is mentioned, the sense of pretentiousness comes up. Thumbs up expression JPG. Let's stop here today. The author usually won't post after 11 o'clock. It's too late. If there hadn't been an hour-long online class meeting today, which gave the author a chance to slack off, there would have been 3 chapters today. Anyway, it's late, so everyone go to bed early. The author will try to adjust the update time in the future, preferably during the day and at a fixed time. It's just that recently, my inspiration for writing has been bursting at night. Forward, see you tomorrow. Thank you to my friends who voted for me. Love you. Today we were recommended on the 2nd page of the 2nd dimension. HHHH, thumbs up. I hope my inspiration for writing will be bursting tomorrow. Chapter 458 Return to School. After sitting there for a while, Tang Liu stood up, took 2 steps forward, and disappeared in a blue light. This might be a room in the wooden house. There was only an oval table in the room, and some soft chairs were neatly placed around the table. Apart from that, there was no other furnishings in the room. Tang Liu teleported himself to this room that looked like a conference room, and walked to the first seat and sat down. When he sat down, the light in the room dimmed slightly, and then the whole room was filled with a faint blue light. The next moment, the other soft chairs around the oval table lit up with blue lights one by one, and then, one after another, illusory projections appeared on those benches. There were a total of 12 soft chairs around the oval table. Now, except for the first one on Tang Liu's left-hand side and the 5 soft chairs opposite Tang Liu, there was no one sitting on the other 6 soft chairs. Among these 6 people, except Tang Liu who was a physical entity, the bodies of the other 5 men and women looked extremely illusory, and their faces could not be seen clearly, as if they were just projections. After the 5 projections appeared, the woman sitting in the first seat on Tang Liu's right was the first to speak. Timeline? I don't think your theory is nonsense. Are you lying to him, or will there really be such a thing as a timeline branch? After a pause, she continued, I'm just asking casually, you don't have to answer. Tang Liu looked at her, smiled, and said, the timeline is indeed real. One of the purposes of establishing this team is to maintain the stability of the timeline. The woman obviously didn't expect Tang Liu to be so straightforward this time. He didn't hide or fool them. but told them the answer directly. Tang Liu smiled again, and swept his eyes over the people sitting there, and continued, of course, what we want to maintain is our timeline from beginning to end. What exactly this concept is, I will not explain to you for the time being. Not only the woman sitting in the first seat on the right, but also the other 4 people rolled their eyes at the same time. Sure enough, Tang Liu is still the riddle man Tang Liu, not changed at all. But before everyone finished rolling their eyes, they heard Tang Liu laughing and saying, "And long time no see, everyone." The 5 people were all stunned, and then looked at the others tacitly, and smiled at each other. Yes, long time no see. The last girl sitting on the right smiled and said, "Long time no see, Captain. I just want to ask, when can we come out?" Tang Liu looked at her and smiled. "You can come out any time. It's just that when you stay in your respective rooms, time is still for you. Once you come out, it will return to normal. Our new teammates are still a month away from turning 12. If they come out now, they will be old aunts and old uncles." He sighed again, "Like your captain, I am already an old man over 10,000 years old." "Oh no, it should be an old monster." The other 5 people, "Sorry, we won't come out." After Tang Liu finished teasing them, he laughed again. "In short, I still recommend that you wait until our new teammates are 18 years old before going out. Of course, you can also go out intermittently. If you really want to go out earlier, it's fine as long as you don't mind your age starting to grow by 1 year every year." Looking at the team members who fell into strange silence, Tang Liu laughed again. "Anyway, your vision and hearing are shared with me now. If I go out, it's equivalent to you going out too. You enjoy the frozen age, and I spend my life exploring the world for you. Isn't it the best of both worlds?" The other 5 people echoed silently and rolled their eyes at the same time. Seeing that the atmosphere was gradually becoming awkward, Tang Liu clapped his hands, laughed dryly and said, "That's it for today, let's adjourn." As soon as he finished speaking, the projections of the other 5 people disappeared immediately, as if they were afraid to avoid him. "Tang Liu," he sighed again, "it's been so long since we last met, and you guys really aren't close to me anymore at this time." Someone pushed the door open, interrupted his sigh, and teased, "You're sighing all day long, how many times can you sigh?" "Tang Liu, my defense is broken." The one who walked in was Emperor Jin Hu, Golden Emperor Jin Chen. He walked to the last seat on the left side of Tang Liu and sat down. Looking at Tang Liu who was sitting on the first seat, he smiled, "Don't give me all these. Tell me, how is that little girl? Why didn't she come today? Is she not healed yet?" Tang Liu laughed and said, "Uncle Jin, don't give me all these. But you, are you interested in my little Funy?" Jin Chen also said hey, and said with a smile, "You kid, I was obviously talking about you. Why did you bring it up to me?" Then this man, who was extremely tough in both appearance and physique, felt a little embarrassed. He raised his hand and touched the tip of his nose with a joint of his index finger. His tiger eyes were a little vague. "Well, haha, I didn't expect that she would just hit my aesthetic point after she transformed." Tang Liu smiled slightly and said, "Uncle Jin, you also know that Xiao Funi has been with me for a few years and has been greatly influenced by me. In addition, you have also watched a lot of things from our place over the past 10,000 years. I think you, Uncle Jin, are more clear about Xiao Funi's view on love. If you still think of yourself as the Golden Tiger King, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you two to succeed." Jin Chen's expression became serious, and he said, "I understand. And let alone Funi, I myself am also quite influenced by your things, so you believe me." Hearing what he said, Tang Liu couldn't help laughing and said, "Uncle Jin, you can relax a little. I'm not Xiao Funi's father. To be honest, Xiao Funi is more like my sister." Jin Chen chuckled and said, "Then you may have to call me aunt in the future." Tang Liu looked at him and smiled strangely, "But Uncle Jin, do you think a girl wants to be called aunt or sister? Are you sure you won't become my brother-in-law in the future? That would make you a generation lower than my father and my uncle for nothing." Jin Chen, fuck, sometimes time seems to be suddenly turned on the accelerator, such as the vacation, which is obviously a whole month, but it passed in a blink of an eye, and then it is the terrible back-to-school season, and a considerable number of students will go back to school with painful masks to report. The back-to-school season of Shrek Academy has also arrived. Recently, some students have begun to return to school one after another, waiting for the time to report for enrollment. At the same time, in addition to the old students who have to return to school, new first-year students will also be admitted. Dayun's did not stay in Haoshan sect for long. After finishing what he had to do, he rushed back to Shrek Academy. After all, the distance between Haoshan City and Shrek City is still very long. The first half of this chapter is called Tang Liu and his TVA team, covering Mouth and Smiling. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459, The Disappearance of Hou Hao. When he went back, he didn't have to run like Tang Qing did when he came. The Haoshan sect gave him a flying soul guide as a gift, which was enough to shorten the time he spent on traveling. When he returned to Shrek Academy, the time for the old students to report was almost starting. However, Dayun's left with Tang Qing during the holiday, but when he came back, he was alone. After he returned to Shrek Academy, he went to find Zhou Yi as soon as possible, just for Tang Qing who didn't come back with him. Although Dayun's didn't know whether Zhou Yi was in the school, it would be right to go to her office to look for her. As a result, when he went there, he happened to see Wang Dong rushing into Zhou Yi's office, and then heard two voices in the office at the same time. One was from Wang Dong, "Teacher Zhou, have you seen Hou Hao?" The other was naturally from Zhou Yi, "Where's Hou Hao?" Hearing this, Dayun's also stopped and decided to wait outside for a while before going in. Not long after, 3 students walked out of Zhou Yi's office and closed the office door. After seeing Dayun standing outside, they were also slightly stunned, but they did not ask anything, and they all quickened their pace to leave. The soundproofing effect of the office was obviously good. After the door was closed, Dayun's could not hear the conversation between Zhou Yi and Wang Dong inside. Of course, he did not need to listen to their conversation because he remembered the plot. He could recall the relevant content in the original book. Naturally, Dayun's also thought that maybe he could find Hou Hao now, and then use the Flying Soul Guide to quickly bring him back, so that he would not be late for reporting like in the original book. But when he thought of what Tang Liu said to him before, he became hesitant again. It must be said that Tang Liu's words about the timeline and the timeline branches did have a great impact on Dayun's. As a result, when Dayun's encountered events related to Hou Hao and other characters in the plot, he could not help but think more, and would worry whether his unintentional actions would cause too much impact and cause the timeline to have branches above the yellow line. So inevitably, he became a little timid about whether to help Hou Hao report to Shrek Academy early. Presumably, it was not just this matter. Dayun's would need to think carefully about everything in the future before he might choose to interfere with the original plot. This was not only related to his own life and death, but also to Hou Hao and the life and death of all living beings in this universe. No wonder he was timid. So in the end, Dayun's decided not to care about Hou Hao. After all, in the original work, although Hou Hao came late and missed the reporting time, he still successfully enrolled, didn't he? This time when he came back, Hou Hao also became a true twin martial spirit, and the owner of the ultimate ice martial spirit. Even if he didn't look for Zhou Yi and Fan Yu, the academy would definitely not give up on him after knowing it. Moreover, even if Dayun's went to pick Hou Hao up in advance, wouldn't Hou Hao still have to explain to Zhou Yi and Fan Yu that he disappeared for no reason and suddenly had a second martial spirit? There is no difference, but if Dayun's chooses to pick up Hou Hao, then he will have to worry about whether some of the following things may deviate from the original normal direction. No matter where the deviation occurs, it is not worth a loss for Dayun's, and he does not want to see it. Dayun's did not wait outside for long, and Wang Dong rushed out of Zhou Yi's office in a hurry. After seeing Dayun's, she was also stunned, and then walked over and asked anxiously, "Dayun's, have you seen Hou Hao?" In the last few months of last semester, Hou Hao basically followed Dayun's, so it was normal for Wang Dong to ask Dayun's now. Dayun sighed in his heart, and then said to Wang Dong, "Sorry, I just came back and haven't seen him." A moment of disappointment flashed across Wang Dong's face, but then it was restrained. She said to Dayun's, "Thank you, if you have any news about Hou Hao, please tell me." Dayun's nodded, and then watched Wang Dong pass him and run towards the corridor. Watching Wang Dong's back as he walked away, Dayun's couldn't help but smile. His brother was very lucky in love, and his relationship with Wang Donger in the original novel was also very touching. But people who have read all the books might have this feeling. That is, Wang Dongzhi might just be a means for Tang San to win over Hou Hao. Thinking of this, Dai Yun's couldn't help but sigh again. As he said, all this was still too far away for him. Thinking about this, he didn't have the strength to solve these problems, so it was just adding trouble to his disciples. He turned around, then walked to the door of Zhou Yi's office, raised his hand and knocked on the door, and said, "Teacher Zhou?" In the office, Zhou Yi, who was rubbing his eyebrows, raised his head, and was slightly stunned when he saw Dai Yun's at the door, and then said, "Dai Yun's? Come in." Dai Yun's walked in. But before he could speak, he heard Zhou Yi hurriedly say, "Do you know where Hou Hao went?" Sure enough, it was this question again. Dai Yun's thought secretly in his heart, but his face remained calm. He showed a puzzled expression and looked at Zhou Yi and said, "Classmate Wang Dong also asked me the same question just now. I also just arrived at the school and have never seen Hou Hao." "Teacher Zhou, what happened to Hou Hao?" Zhou Yi sighed and said with some regret, "Don't mention it. This kid has been out of contact for almost a month. None of us knows where this little bastard has gone. Don't ask so many questions. Tell me, what do you want to talk to me about?" As she spoke, Zhou Yi changed the subject. Obviously, she didn't want too many people to know that Hou Hao had lost contact. Dai Yun's nodded slightly, and then said, "Teacher Zhou, I'm here to handle the withdrawal procedures for Tang Qing." Hearing this, Zhou Yi couldn't help but be stunned, then frowned and said, "Tang Qing? Withdrawal procedures?" Dai Yun's, "Yes, Teacher Zhou. As you know, Tang Qing is a disciple of the Haotian sect. I went to the Haotian sect with him during this holiday. He told me that he came to the academy to study before and obeyed the arrangements of the elders of his sect and came out to gain experience. Now his experience is over, and the elders of his sect have called him back and assigned him new tasks, so he will not continue to study in Shrek Academy, so he asked me to help him with the withdrawal procedures." After listening, Zhou Yi thought for a moment, then waved his hand and said, "Okay, I know. I'll issue you a certificate later, and you go to Director Douluo to handle his withdrawal procedures." Dai Yun's replied, "Yes, thank you for your trouble. I'm sorry for being a little late today." The author ate undercooked green beans yesterday, and by the time he realized it, he had food poisoning. The author has a sensitive stomach again, and has been having diarrhea today, but fortunately it's not too serious. This update is still only 2 chapters. Thank you to my friends who voted for me. Love you. Chapter 460, First Day of 2nd Grade. Tang Qing's withdrawal procedures were completed, and Dai Yun's had nothing else to do for the time being, so he went to clean the dormitory that had been unoccupied for a month and had become a little dusty. Tang Qing was not coming now, so his dormitory would become a single room. Hey, it was no big deal. However, thinking of Tang Qing's purpose of coming to Shrek Academy, Dai Yun's felt a little helpless. Just like he said to Zhou Yi before, Tang Qing came to Shrek Academy to learn, but he also had a mission. And the person who gave him the mission was not the 3 elders of Haotian sect, but actually the leader of Haotian sect. As for the content of the mission, it was for Dai Yun's. Before leaving Haotian sect, Tang Qing also confessed everything to Dai Yun's. His mission was actually to find Dai Yun's at Shrek Academy and then bring him back to Haotian sect during this holiday. It didn't matter whether he attended classes or not, because what Shrek Academy could teach, Haotian sect could teach, but Shrek Academy could not teach those Haotian sect disciples the chaotic cloak hammer method. Now that Tang Qing's mission is complete, he will naturally not return to Shrek Academy to study. Tang Qing said that he just wanted to go home to complete other tasks. If there is an assessment in the inner courtyard in the future, he might come back. Dai Yun's didn't quite understand what Tang Qing meant by going home. Could it be that Haotian sect is not Tang Qing's home? In short, after his mentality became Buddhist, Dai Yun's no longer thought about these things that he couldn't figure out. When Tang Qing could tell him in the future, he would know. After practicing in the dormitory for a whole day, when he woke up again, the enrollment registration for Shrek Academy began. Dai Yun's went to register, received the second-year school uniform, went to the new classroom of Class 1, and after getting familiar with the route, he returned to the dormitory and continued to practice. He didn't suddenly become diligent, but the energy accumulated in his body was too huge now, and he had to refine and absorb it as soon as possible, otherwise there would be an indescribable sense of difficulty when the soul power was running, which would also have a certain impact on his combat effectiveness. Of course, the power accumulated in his body would not kill him. At most, His soul power had a density that was not supposed to be there for his level of cultivation, so it was a little more difficult to operate. But the extra energy was being absorbed by his body at any time, so the speed of his soul power growth did not slow down. Now Dai Yun's cultivation has reached level 39, which is very close to the soul sect. I believe that with the help of the energy in his body, the day when he breaks through to level 40 will not be too far away. In this way, another day was spent in cultivation. Dai Yun's went to the classroom early in the morning and sat in a daze in the back row. However, Tang Qing was not next to him this time, so he specially chose to sit in the corner against the wall in the back row. When he sat down, he stared out the window in a daze. In this way, even if someone sat next to him, it was unlikely to talk to him. Moreover, because he kept looking out the window without moving, he might subconsciously choose to stay away from him. In this case, no one might sit next to him. But not long after, he felt that someone sat down next to him. With a sigh in his heart, Dai Yun's turned around slightly, wanting to see who was sitting next to him. Then, he saw Yu Hao's profile. Dai Yun's, seeing Dai Yun's turn his head, Yu Hao also tilted his head and smiled at him. Dai Yun's leaned back tactically, then smiled awkwardly. "Ah, classmate Yu Hao? You're back." Yu Hao nodded and said, "Something delayed me for a while, and I reported a little late, but now it's all resolved." Dai Yun's laughed dryly. "That's good." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Wang Dong sitting in front of Yu Hao. Looking at his indescribable expression, he probably guessed what she was thinking at the moment. After all, she and Yu Hao used to sit together. However, in order to avoid the embarrassment of continued eye contact, Dai Yun scraped the tip of his nose with the knuckles of his right index finger and quickly looked away. Fortunately, not long after, Zhou Yi appeared in the class, which freed Dai Yun from the somewhat solidified air. He watched Zhou Yi and Wang Yan talking quietly on the podium, and the conversation between the two in the original novel automatically emerged in his mind, and he dubbed the two. After Zhou Yi said a few words, Wang Yan's expression suddenly changed. After exclaiming, he hurriedly walked out of the classroom with Zhou Yi to continue talking. However, before Zhou Yi went out, he still did not forget to scan the students below with a stern look, so no one dared to take advantage of this time to slack off. Zhou Yi and Wang Yan did not talk for long outside, just a short minute or so, and then the two walked back in. Then, Zhou Yi began to tell everyone about the upgrade assessment. Dai Yun's was not distracted this time. Although he remembered the relevant content of the original book, he could not help but worry about whether there would be any differences, so it would not hurt to listen carefully now. In general, it was still similar to the original book, that is, to go to the beast fighting area to challenge the soul beast, ranging from 100 years to 1000 years of cultivation, and choose by yourself when you go on stage, and the referee will score you according to your performance. The theoretical full score of the assessment is 160 points as a pass, but in fact there are 50 additional points, so the actual full score is 150. After listening to Dai Yun's, he began to think about the subsequent upgrade assessment. Anyway, he would definitely choose a 1000-year-old soul beast. With his current strength, it would not be difficult to kill an ordinary 1000-year-old soul beast. Of course, he could not learn from Dai Hulbin to kill the soul beast. First of all, it would leave a bad impression on the school. Secondly, it would also deduct points. Finally, the most important thing is that he would have to pay money. It was totally not worth it. So, in the end, should he just knock the soul beast out? Well, it seems a little difficult to knock out the soul beast, so why not just tie it up? Dai Yun's was thinking about it, but was brought back to his thoughts by Zhou Yi's lecture. Looking forward, he saw a person standing at the front door of the classroom, and then saw Zhou Yi with a gloomy face, looking at the person at the door, and said, "Teacher Mu, why are you not teaching in your second class, and running to our first class?" Standing at the front door of class 1 at this time was none other than Mu Jin, who was once the invigilator of Dai Yun's freshman assessment and now the head teacher of class 2. She came to class 1 at this time for no other reason than to bring 2 teachers from the academic affairs office to deal with the matter of Yu Hao not reporting on time. The class of class 1 was forced to suspend. Mu Jin made way so that the 2 teachers from the academic affairs office standing behind her could walk into class 1. Zhou Yi walked over and began to negotiate with them about the situation. At this time, they did not deliberately lower their voices to talk, so all the students in class 1 could hear them. All of a sudden, Everyone's eyes were on Hou Yuhao, who was standing next to Daiyun's with a calm face. Tang Qing officially withdrew, otherwise it would be difficult to write about the selection of the Shrek 7 Devils. Hehe. Chapter 461, Confession Bureau? Then, two more people appeared at the door of Class 1. One was Du Weilin, the head teacher whom Daiyun's had met before, and the tall figure next to Du Weilin should be Fan Yu. This was the first time Daiyun saw him in person. Not long after, the scene in the original novel where Fan Yu awarded Hou Yuhao the second-level Soul Guide badge was staged in Class 1. At Fan Yu's signal, Hou Yuhao, who was beside Daiyun's, immediately stood up and walked in front of him. Then, Fan Yu put a water blue octagonal star badge on Hou Yuhao's chest and announced Hou Yuhao's achievements in the Soul Guide department in the past 8 months. Hearing that Hou Yuhao had become a second-level Soul Guide in just 8 months, except for Zhou Yi who had known about it for a long time, the other teachers were all a little shocked. Then they heard a sound of applause coming from the back of Class 1, which sounded extremely clear in the extremely quiet classroom at this time. Including Hou Yuhao in the front of the classroom and all the teachers, everyone looked in the direction of the applause at the same time. Then they saw Daiyun's, who was clapping his hands with a little excitement. All the teachers, the moment he met Hou Yuhao's gaze, Daiyun's clapping motion froze, and even his facial expression froze. For a moment, he didn't know whether to clap or stop. He was awkward for 2 seconds, and then he suddenly put his hands under the desk. His expression returned to calm, and he looked forward seriously, as if it wasn't him who had just clapped. Hou Yuhao looked at him with a very obvious expression of "It's not me, I didn't do anything, don't mistake me for someone else," and smiled helplessly, but the excitement in his heart was probably only known to him. Fan Yu smiled at this time, perhaps because the atmosphere was a little awkward, and said, "Hou Yuhao can achieve this kind of achievement, which is rare even in the Sun Moon Empire, and it is indeed worthy of encouragement. Please give him a warm applause." After that, he took the lead in clapping, looking at Hou Yuhao with eyes full of relief and encouragement. Zhou Yi was next. She wore a mask and showed a somewhat ugly smile. She also looked at Hou Yuhao with satisfaction. The two teachers took the lead, and several other teachers, along with all the students below, began to applaud. The one who clapped the most was not Wang Dong, but Zhou Sichen. Seeing that everyone was applauding, Daiyun's also breathed a sigh of relief and applauded again. However, at this time, he did not look at Hou Yuhao. His face was still serious. It can be said that he was trying his best to cover up his vest. Of course, he actually knew that the vest he was covering up was no longer useful. He was just using this to give himself psychological comfort, which is commonly known as deceiving himself. After that, Fan Yu, Du Weilin, Mu Jin, and the two teachers from the teaching department left, and Hou Yuhao returned to his seat. While Zhou Yi had not started the class again, Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao in front of him also turned around and congratulated Hou Yuhao. Although Hou Yuhao tried his best to be modest, he still couldn't help but show some pride. Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao didn't talk to Hou Yuhao for too long, because Zhou Yi started teaching again. If they didn't want to be punished, they had to go back to class. But Hou Yuhao, who is always serious, couldn't concentrate on the class. Although he kept looking at Zhou Yi, his eyes would sometimes be slightly dull, which was obviously because he was distracted. In order to avoid eye contact with Hou Yuhao, Daiyun didn't look at him, but he didn't notice anything unusual about Hou Yuhao. Just like that, the bell for the end of the get out of class finally rang in the morning, and Zhou Yi immediately announced the end of school, asking all students to prepare for the afternoon entrance examination. For Daiyun now, the bell for the end of get out of class was like a blessing, because it meant that he could leave Hou Yuhao quickly and didn't have to stay in that awkward atmosphere where he didn't know what to say. Then, just as Daiyun was about to slip away, he was stopped by Hou Yuhao. Daiyun turned his head stiffly, watching Hou Yuhao let Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao go first, and then looked at himself. After Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao left the classroom, Daiyun spoke first, laughing dryly and said, "Student Hou Yuhao, what can I do for you?" Hou Yuhao smiled at him, still sitting in his seat, but lowered his head and raised his hand to take off the badge on his chest that symbolized a second-level soul mentor. He stretched out his finger and gently rubbed the shiny and smooth surface of the badge, as if he was admiring some treasure. Then, he looked up again and looked at Daiyun, holding the badge and showing it to him, with a light in his deep blue eyes. He was a little happy and showed off. It was just like the first time he handed him the grilled fish. That look, Exactly the same. Show off, expectant. Look, he said this. Waiting for a compliment. The dry smile on Dayun's face disappeared. He stood there in silence for a while, and also sat down. Seeing that he seemed to have decided to stay, Ho Yuheo smiled softly, and then looked at the aqua-blue octagonal star badge in his hand, pressing the 2 star diamonds on it with the tip of his thumb. Dayun looked at him, waiting for the words he wanted to say to him. He didn't have to wait long, and then he heard Yuheo whispering, I heard that a second-level soul master can find a good job in various countries on the mainland, and never worry about food and clothing. Dayun didn't respond immediately, but after a moment, he still said, a second-level soul master can already arm the army, and the 3 countries will definitely compete for you. Ho Yuheo smiled, and his eyes suddenly became a little empty, still whispering, when my mother passed away, she told me that if I couldn't become a soul master in the future, I would learn a craft. As long as I was safe, she would be able to die with a smile on her face, in an instant. It was as if a thorn had pierced into his heart. His heartbeat and breathing seemed to stop for a moment. He looked at the boy in front of him who was staring at the aquamarine badge. He looked as if everything was calm. Suddenly, it was as if he was in the dark deep sea. His lungs, choked by water, felt stinging and heavy, and he felt choked. He was completely oppressed by the feeling of suffocation and even forgot how to speak. He looked at the boy who raised his head, smiling at him, but with a hint of moisture in his eyes. He listened to the grown-up boy in front of him, slowly opening his mouth and asking softly, I did it, didn't I? You did it. It was such a simple sentence. When looking into the boy's eyes, Dayun couldn't say anything. He just showed a smile that was uglier than crying. Enduring the painful and struggling heart. Say, excuse me. Chapter 462 Hardships? The aqua-blue octagonal star badge exudes a gentle feeling of a calm lake. The 2 star diamonds on it, every facet and corner, are reflecting the surrounding light. Just like the lake water under the sun, shimmering with ripples. It was just an ordinary second-level soul guide badge. The 3rd, 4th, 5th, and higher levels in the future. Any one of them may be more beautiful and more precious than it. But at least now, the badge is in his hand, and that special meaning can never be replaced. When he was very young, he heard those people in the mansion saying that his brother died at the hands of an evil soul master, and his body was gone. When everyone was extremely sure and talked about this news that had been established as a fact like a joke after dinner, even his mother had accepted the fact and dragged her body out of the days crying in sorrow, the 6-year-old child still firmly believed in everything that no one believed. Even if he and his mother were demoted to the dilapidated woodshed again, even if he was once again naked and had difficulty eating, the little boy still believed that his brother would appear by his bedside one day and tell him those beautiful fairy tales in the same gentle tone as before. Then he would wake up in surprise and give his brother a big hug. He no longer cared about the living environment, as long as his brother could come back. But until his mother could no longer protect him from the wind and rain with her broken body, the little boy suddenly woke up from his dream. From then on, he was alone, living in this cold and withered world. It was in the gentle gaze of his mother on her deathbed that she told him the truth weakly and cruelly. His brother would never come back. He still wanted to tell himself that it was just a terrible nightmare. But his mother's palms were no longer warm as before, and her body began to stiffen, telling him coldly, don't deceive yourself anymore. Sadness? Anger? Hatred? He had all of these. But he was more powerless. Even if he left the Duke's mansion, even if he got a 1,000,000-year soul ring, the boy who grew up to be a teenager still felt at a loss and still felt that he was powerless. Until he heard a name in a class that he could only whisper in his memory. Dayun's. It was like the light that broke through the clouds after the rain. It was fresh after the rain, and it was like a dream of clouds. It was the light of hope. Even though that person kept denying and changing the subject. But the figure who stuffed a gold card into his hand, held his hand, and blocked in front of him. And that brief moment of turning back. With fingertips raised, she looked at him silently and firmly, and said silently, leave it to me. Everything made him extremely sure. It was him. Not the same name. Even if the appearance was different. But, it was him. But why? He had confessed so frankly today. Why was he still unwilling to admit it? Even if his expression was so ugly, he still had to pretend to be distant. And he said to him uncomfortably, I am sorry. Why? He wanted to question the person in front of him loudly. Ask him why he was unwilling to give him an answer. Why did he keep making excuses? Keep changing the subject, and so stiffly? But looking at the face of the person in front of him who was forcing a smile, and thinking about the silent and resolute eyes that day, he softened his heart again. He must have had his reasons for doing this. He must have wanted to recognize himself. It was just that for some reason, he couldn't. Otherwise, he could have watched him being hit by Dai Huolbin that day without helping him at all. He wouldn't have chosen to stop himself when he was about to blurt out the word brother. Maybe they can recognize each other. Moreover, just like his mother had said to him, Ho Yuhao looked at Dai Yun's for a long time, and still smiled. No matter what your reasons are, he stood up and prepared to leave. I don't blame you. He saw Dai Yun's pupils shrinking violently, and finally smiled with satisfaction and walked out of the classroom. Sure enough, he saw Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao waiting for him outside, and couldn't help laughing again. He walked over quickly and took out a gold card. Let's go, I'll treat you to dinner today, for the afternoon assessment. Looking at the backs of the three people leaving, Dai Yun's leaned against the door frame and remained silent. I don't blame you. That sentence seemed to still linger in his ears. He had to admit that Yu Hao's words made him let go of most of his worries and touched him. But he also had to admit that that sentence didn't make him feel much better. If Yu Hao didn't behave like this now, if Ho Yu Hao had even a little hatred for him, he would feel much less guilty than he does now. But that's the fact. Yu Hao is still the same as he remembered. But he is no longer the same as before. He took a last look at Ho Yu Hao's back, turned around, and walked in another direction. Perhaps, if he really died at the hands of that evil soul master, he wouldn't have to go through all this again. Dai Yun's expression was a little gloomy and a little irritable. When he turned the corner and walked into the stairs, he couldn't help but curse. It's so annoying. The upgrade assessment started on time. The beast fighting area is the largest building in the entire Shrek Academy. Inside is a square for students to fight soul beasts, and there is also a place to keep soul beasts. After all, Shrek has a history of 10,000 years, so there are many powerful 10,000-year level soul beasts in the beast fighting area. In addition to providing students with actual combat, they are also provided for theoretical teachers like Wang Yan to study. The beast fighting square is oval, with a long axis of 187 meters and a short axis of 155 meters. Today, all the second-year students will take the entrance examination in this square. As the first class of the second grade and the class with the strongest comprehensive strength, Class 1 is naturally the first class to send students to participate in the examination. Everything is the same as the original book. The first student to represent Class 1 is Ho Yu Hao. In the eyes of everyone who can't understand, he chose a 100-year soul beast with the lowest standard for the assessment. Then, amid the exclamations of everyone, he released 200,000-year soul rings and ended the battle directly. The entire beast fighting area was instantly in a mess, and the director of teaching Duilin who came to supervise the exam had to announce the suspension of the exam. But among the teachers and students who released their soul rings to resist the aura of the 100,000-year soul beast, Dai Yun sat silently in the last row of the first class area of the viewing platform, with his elbows on his knees, the back of his hands against his cheeks, and his head down. He didn't know what he was thinking, but there was no soul ring around him. It seemed that he was not affected by the aura of the 100,000-year soul beast that permeated the whole venue. And he himself seemed to have a strong and terrifying aura, as if he was ready to go, and as if he was trying his best to suppress and hide. But in short, the assessment can continue for the time being. It's late, sorry, evil soul master Dai Yun's, I'm so annoyed, I want to kill something to sacrifice to the sky. Ho Yu Hao, my brother became the son of the Holy Spirit Church. My sister also became the saint of the Holy Spirit Church, and my teacher also became the saint of the Holy Spirit Church. What should I do? Tang Liu, thumbs up, show your third martial soul, and then join them. See you tomorrow. Thank you for voting for me, voting for the recommendation and monthly tickets, and rewarding my friends. Love you. Chapter 463, Assessment Reopened. After the soul beasts in the Colosseum experienced the intimidation of the breath of the 400,000-year-old Ice Azure Emperor Scorpion, it would take at least 2 or 3 days for them to recover. Since Class 1 and Class 2 teach 4 types of soul masters with direct combat capabilities, namely, the strong attack system, the control system, the agile attack system, and the defense system, only these 2 classes upgrade assessments are to fight soul beasts in the Colosseum. Now because of Ho Yu Hao, The assessment cannot be carried out temporarily, so the students of the two classes return to the classroom to continue their classes. Still the same as the original work, Wang Yan asked Hou Hao to simulate a breath of soul beasts from 10 to 10,000 years old through simulated soul skills, so as to train the students' willpower. At the same time, he also began to explain soul rings to the students, as well as Tang San's god-level soul ring 10,000 years ago, and the deep-sea demon whale king with 1,000,000 years of cultivation. Dai Yun's was still sitting in the back row, supporting his face with his hands and slightly lowering his head, so that no one could see his slightly bloodshot eyes. The breath of the Ice Azure Emperor Scorpion simulated by Hou Hao filled the entire classroom, which was even more obvious than before in the Colosseum. Dai Yun's lowered his head because he didn't dare to look at Hou Hao now, fearing that he would go up and devour Hou Hao if they made eye contact. "How do you feel?" He listened to the teasing laughter in his mind, rolled his eyes silently, and said in his mind, "Terrible." Tang Liu continued to laugh at him. "Who made you have a little emotional fluctuation at noon, triggering the devouring instincts in the Dark Demon Evil God Tiger's soul ring?" The Dark Demon Evil God Tiger originally relied on devouring soul beasts with strong cultivation to cultivate. Now that it has encountered the Ice Azure Emperor Scorpion, it naturally won't want to miss it. If King Gaia was only 10,000 years old, his instinctive impulse would definitely not be so strong, but he is more than 200,000 years old. Even if he really met the Ice Azure Emperor Scorpion in its prime, he can still fight. Dai Yun's, don't stand there and make sarcastic remarks. Can't you help me like last time? Last time, it was the instinctive impulse of the god-eating evil eye white demon tiger when it met a god-level object. You absolutely cannot restrain it. But this time it's just the Dark Demon Evil God Tiger. I didn't help you, but you persisted for so long, didn't you? And I also told you that I'm not your system, or your grandfather, so don't count on me for such a small matter. Dai Yun snorted viciously. Forget it if you don't want to help, I can do it myself. Because he had to suppress the impulse of the power in his body, Dai Yun's had no extra thoughts to listen to Wang Yan's lecture. After finally persisting until Wang Yan finished talking about the god-level soul ring and asked Hou Hao to stop using the simulated soul skills, Dai Yun felt that the restlessness of the power in his body gradually subsided. He quietly breathed a sigh of relief, and then raised his head, just in time to see Hou Hao about to walk to the seat next to him. His expression instantly became serious. Hou Hao sat down next to him and saw that the whites of Dai Yun's eyes were almost covered with the bloodshot. So he asked in confusion, "Didn't you have a good rest at noon?" Dai Yun laughed dryly. "Yeah, bullshit, it's all your fault. You're playing sentimental games with me for no reason. Damn it, my endocrine system is out of balance." Dai Yun remained calm on the surface, but he was already complaining madly in his heart. Hou Hao's eyes were filled with worry. "Then you should have a good rest tonight," Dai Yun responded. Okay. In front, Xiao turned around and whispered to Dai Yun, "I forgot to ask you, why didn't Tang Qing come?" Dai Yun was not as reserved as he was in front of Hou Hao when facing her. He moved closer and whispered in the same way, "He dropped out of school." Xiao was stunned for a moment. "Why? He has something going on at home, so he didn't come." Whether it was Hou Hao, Wang Dong and Xiao, or even the entire class, except for those who had seen Tang Qing's spirit, most of the other students didn't know that Tang Qing was from the Haotian sect. The students who knew also understood what the Haotian sect represented, so they didn't spread it around. Although they didn't know that Tang Qing was from the Haotian sect, Dai Yun's words just now clearly meant that it was inconvenient to reveal it, so although Xiao was curious, she didn't ask any more questions. On the podium, Wang Yan once again reminded everyone to go back and prepare well for the upgrade assessment in 2 days, and then announced the end of school. Dai Yun did not stop and went back to the dormitory directly. Since Hou Hao had determined that he did not rest well, he was not stopped by any inexplicable things and returned to the dormitory smoothly. He had nothing else to do in the dormitory except to practice. The sooner he could refine all the energy in his body, the sooner he could get rid of the influence of the Dark Demon Evil Tiger's devouring instinct. Maybe he could practice to the Soul Sect before the start of this year's All-Continent Advanced Soul Master Academy Fighting Soul Competition. 2 days later, the upgrade assessment of Classes 1 and 2 was carried out again. Because Yan Xiaos wanted to know what Hou Hao's second martial soul was, Hou Hao was asked to retake the assessment, and he was not allowed to use simulated soul skills. On the day of the assessment, Yan Xiaos, as the dean of the martial soul department, also appeared in the judges' area and replaced Du Weilin as the chief judge, thus witnessing the assessments of Wang Dong, Dai Huolbin, and Hou Yuhao. After seeing Hou Yuhao frighten off the Flame Lion King with his martial spirit, Yan Xiaos also saw that his second martial spirit was the ultimate Icy Jade Scorpion. In short, after seeing what he wanted to see, Yan Xiaos decided to leave. After all, he still had to plan how to snatch Hou Yuhao from the Soul Guidance Department. But before leaving, he also asked Du Weilin to announce Hou Yuhao's assessment score. 150 points, full marks. But sometimes, accidents happen when it is unexpected. Hou Yuhao, who was originally pulled away by Wang Yan to ask about his second martial spirit, did not agree to leave immediately because he wanted to stay and watch Dai Yun's assessment. So, seeing this, Yan Xiaos did not leave with him. Moreover, at this time he also saw Dai Yun's sitting in the last row of the viewing area with his head down. He changed his mind and chose to stay and continue watching the game. After Hou Yuhao, who was in Class 1, finished his assessment, it was Class 2's turn. As the head teacher of Class 2, Mu Jin naturally sent out another soul master in her class besides Dai Huolbin, Zihuanayu, who had the Pipi Elephant Spirit. Wang Dong and Dai Huolbin, who were also soul masters, and even Hou Yuhao, who was only a second-ring Great Soul Master, chose a 1,000-year Soul Beast, so Zihuanayu was not to be outdone and also chose a 1,000-year Soul Beast. His spirit, the Pipi Elephant, was a Soul Beast with extremely strong defensive power, and he himself was a defensive combat Soul Master, so in the battle with the 1,000-year Soul Beast, he relied on his own defensive power to fight the 1,000-year Soul Beast. But maybe his luck was not very good, because the 1,000-year Soul Beast he encountered was also a scaly armored demon crocodile that was not good at attacking but had extremely strong defensive power. Chapter 464, Scared Away. When the defense system faced the defense system, neither could break the other's defense, so neither could do anything to the other. So in the end, Zihuanayu scored 105 points, which was 100 basic points for choosing a 1,000-year Soul Beast, plus the 5 additional points given by the teachers. After Class 2 came on stage, it was Class 1's turn. Zhou Yi sent Zio, one of her 3 favorite students. Although Zio was also a second-ring Great Soul Master, he also chose a 1,000-year Soul Beast. With a control effect of 2 martial spirits, he fought with his Soul Beast for a long time and finally got 110 points. Then, Class 2 sent Wu Feng, who had the Red Dragon martial spirit. Wu Feng's soul power cultivation was already very close to level 30, so when she came on stage, she also chose a 1,000-year Soul Beast. As both of them were strong attack system Soul Masters, the difference in cultivation between Wu Feng and Dai Huolbin was very intuitive at this time. They both collided head-on with 1,000-year level Soul Beasts, and Dai Huolbin almost crushed them, while Wu Feng suffered a little. So in the end, she also got the same score as Zio. Now, it was the turn of the first class to take the test. Then, because Hou Yuhao had just released the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion Spirit during the test, Dai Yun's, who had just recovered from the impact and was about to continue paddling, heard Zhou Yi calling his name below. He was stunned for a moment, and at the same time, he saw Hou Yuhao and Wang Yan who had not left yet, and then he was completely stunned, and did not respond to Zhou Yi immediately. Zhou Yi looked at Dai Yun's who had not responded for a long time. His face sank, and he shouted in a bad tone, "Why are you in a daze? Is it because the courses I arranged are too light, and you want to practice more?" Dai Yun's came back to his senses and ran down quickly. "Sorry, Teacher Zhou, I didn't expect you to let me take the test now." Zhou Yi snorted, and didn't argue with him. He handed him the test form and told him to get down and take the test. Dai Yun's jumped down from the viewing platform, trotted all the way to the 2 teachers in charge of the exam, and handed in his own test form. The invigilator followed the procedure. "What major are you majoring in?" Dai Yun's answered honestly. "Strong attack department." "How many years of Soul Beast do you choose?" "I choose 1,000 years. "Thank you, teacher." Just after saying this, Dai Yun's was stunned for a moment, feeling like he was ordering food in a restaurant. After the invigilator indicated that he understood, Dai Yun's walked to the center of the Colosseum, waiting for his Soul Beast opponent to appear. On the judge's bench, Yan Xiaos was also alert again after seeing Dai Yun's appear. Although he had also seen the battle between Dai Yun's and Dai Yuheng a few months ago. But that battle ended too quickly. Apart from seeing that Dai Yun's was a 3-ring soul master with 1 yellow and 2 purple, possessing lightning ability, and suspected of having the instant transfer soul skill, he could not see more. In addition, his teacher also mentioned Dai Yun's to him a few times, although not in too much detail, but he was still curious about Dai Yun's from the bottom of his heart. I just don't know, even Dai Yuheng, the elite soul emperor of the inner courtyard, can't make Dai Yun's show his full strength. Can a mere 1,000-year soul beast do it? Anyway, Yan Xiao's is waiting to see. As the iron gate connected to the beast circle slowly opened with a huge mechanical sound, Dai Yun's test object also revealed its true appearance. It was a wolf with a body length of more than 1.5 meters and dark purple hair all over its body. The dark attribute soul beast, the nether wolf, is famous for its speed and weirdness. As a powerful social soul beast, the nether wolf also has extremely strange soul skills, making them extremely difficult to deal with. And this soul skill not only allows the nether wolf to have the ability to transfer instantly, but also allows the nether wolf to flash back to its original position after teleporting, which is particularly difficult to deal with. In general, in one word, it is hard to guard against. Especially this kind of soul beast is still social. If you encounter such a soul beast in the Xingdao Great Forest, if there is no attribute restraint and no strong enough strength, the only outcome is death. The moment they saw the nether wolf, all those who knew about this kind of soul beast immediately looked at Dai Yun's, ready to see how he would deal with it. As for Dai Yun's, after Long Xiao's teaching, he naturally recognized at a glance that his assessment object was the nether wolf. But at this time, he was not thinking about how to deal with the nether wolf, but only one sentence: "Hey, I can go home early and go to bed." The nether wolf was alert by nature. After seeing Dai Yun's, he did not act immediately. He stood there observing Dai Yun's, guarding against Dai Yun's, judging whether he would attack him and whether he could defeat him. But after seeing that Dai Yun's had not moved for a long time, the nether wolf could no longer hold back and ran towards Dai Yun's at full speed. Most of the people watching the game became nervous. Then Dai Yun's made a move that surprised all of them, and even stunned them. Dai Yun's, standing in the center of the Colosseum, just raised his hands, bent his 10 fingers to make claws, and placed them on both sides of his head. At this time, the distance between the nether wolf and him was less than 3 meters. Just when the judges saw that he was slow to rescue, Dai Yun's opened his mouth. Wow! The nether wolf stopped rushing forward in an instant, and kept digging its front paws backwards to slow itself down as quickly as possible. It even sat on the ground with its buttocks, not only performing a front paw break, but also a flower break. The huge wolf had leaned back with all its strength, fearing that it would get closer to Dai Yun's. After a fearful howl of a woo, the forward momentum basically stopped. At this time, it quickly turned around, tucked its tail between its legs and quickly ran back to the iron door where the internal situation could not be seen. The teachers who were ready to come up to rescue, Yan Xiao's, who clearly witnessed the whole process, the rest of the audience, everyone, looking at this scene with a strong sense of déjà vu, some opened their mouths wide and were stunned. Some tilted their heads and hunched their backs, unbelievable. The reason why they felt that this scene was very similar was because not long ago, Hou Yuhao also made a flame lion king run back to the beast pen in almost the same posture. And Dai Yun's did this without even releasing his martial spirit. In the entire Colosseum, only Yan Xiao's on the judge's seat. And the Ice Emperor and Xianmeng Ice Silkworm and Hou Yuhao's spiritual sea saw the whole process of Dai Yun's scaring off the nether wolf. In fact, when Dai Yun screamed wow, his pupils were released, and one of them turned into an extremely dead gray-white. And at this time, the nether wolf was scared away as if it had seen its natural enemy. The pace began to speed up. Mingjin, thank you friends who voted for me for the recommendation and monthly tickets. I love you so much. Chapter 465, Extreme? Yan Xiao's, who had the cultivation of a super Douluo, naturally noticed the changes in Dai Yun's eyes. Although he did not see Dai Yun's martial soul, after all, he did not release his martial soul, but he had lived for such a long time and had a wide range of experience, so Yan Xiao's also saw that the situation when Dai Yun scared away the nether wolf was the same as when Hou Yuhao scared away the flame lion king. Both were absolute attribute suppression. And now, the only thing Yan Xiao's is not sure about is whether Dai Yun's martial soul is also the same extreme attribute as Hou Yuhao. After thinking it over again and again, he decided to find out, so he said to Du Whelan next to him, Dai Yun's upgrade assessment will also give him full marks. In addition, I remember that this child seems to be not a core disciple of our martial soul department. After seeing Du Whelan nod, Yan Xiaos continued, then our martial soul department must not let this child run away. Du Whelan nodded to show that he understood. After Yan Xiaos finished speaking, he was about to leave, but as if he suddenly remembered something, he walked back and said with a fearful look on his face, by the way, this child should have nothing to do with the soul guidance department, right? With the example of Hou Yuhao before him, Yan Xiaos dared not be careless this time, so he asked specifically. Du Whelan shook his head affirmatively and said, Dean Yan, Dayuns did not elect the soul guidance department, then I'm relieved. After you are done supervising the exam, remember to look for this child, and I will go there too. Yes, compared to Yan Xiaos's uncertainty, the Xianmeng Ice Silkworm and the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion in Hou Yuhao's spiritual sea undoubtedly understood more about the power that Dayuns had just displayed like a flash in the pan. First of all, the Ice Emperor Scorpion, who is the ultimate ice, immediately said with great certainty, that is the ultimate dark attribute. My feeling cannot be wrong, although Xianmeng Ice Silkworm has lived longer than Ice Emperor, his experience is indeed not as good as Ice Emperor. However, he also knows some things that Ice Emperor does not know. After all, he has been imprisoned by so many super soul beasts in the starred-out Great Forest for a full 100,000 years, and has also faced the golden-eyed Black Dragon King, the leader of the current 10 fierce beasts, the beast god Emperor Tian. On the Douluo continent, those who know the existence of this golden-eyed Black Dragon King know that its attribute is darkness. As Xianmeng Ice Silkworm, who has faced Emperor Tian, can now feel that the trace of soul power that Dayuns just revealed is much higher than Emperor Tian in terms of level. Moreover, since he has spent the last 100,000 years of his life in the starred-out Great Forest, he also knows something that Ice Emperor does not know. He said, the aura of the human child just now is very similar to a soul beast I sensed in the starred-out Great Forest 10,000 years ago. You must be familiar with that soul beast, Bing Bing. It is the dark demon evil god tiger. Hou Yuhao heard a little more surprise in Bingbi's tone. Dark demon evil god tiger? Are you sure? Xianmeng said with certainty. The dark demon evil god tiger that appeared in the starred-out Great Forest 10,000 years ago was killed by the strongest human 10,000 years ago. I will not be wrong. Listening to the conversation between the two soul beasts, Hou Yuhao also became curious. He has just entered the 2nd grade, and the teachers of Shrek Academy have not yet told him about soul beasts such as the dark demon evil god tiger. Moreover, soul beasts such as the dark demon evil god tiger are extremely special. Maybe he will have to wait until he enters the inner courtyard to learn about them in related courses. So now, he asked directly in the Sea of Spirit, Brother Xianmeng, Ice Emperor, what kind of soul beast is the dark demon evil god tiger? Is it very powerful? Although Ice Emperor did not truly feel the existence of the dark demon evil god tiger like Xianmeng Ice Silkworm, she knew more about the dark demon evil god tiger than Xianmeng Ice Silkworm. So the task of explaining for Hou Yuhao was also given to Xianmeng Ice Silkworm. The Ice Emperor said, the dark demon evil god tiger is a very powerful and very evil soul beast. This kind of soul beast appears because the evil god infected the white tiger, causing the white tiger's sacred light attribute to completely turn into darkness and completely degenerate. Let me tell you this, Yuhao, if one day a dark demon evil god tiger appears in our far north, I will definitely kill it without mercy. Not only me, but the other 2 of our 3 heavenly kings of the far north will also make this choice. Xianmeng Binkin took over at this time. Soul beasts like the dark demon evil god tiger rarely have a cultivation base of more than 10,000 years and reach the level of 100,000 years. This is because powerful soul beasts like Bing Bing find it difficult to tolerate the existence of the dark demon evil god tiger. Like the one I felt 10,000 years ago, its cultivation base was just over 50,000 years. Before the 2 beast kings of the starred-out Great Forest fell at that time, I had never found any trace of the dark demon evil god tiger. Bingdi nodded and continued, the dark demon evil god tiger can be said to be the natural enemy of all of our soul beasts. It relies on constantly devouring soul beasts, or the human soul masters it occasionally encounters, to cultivate and enhance its own cultivation. Although they are both soul beasts, the existence of the dark demon evil god tiger is intolerable to most soul beasts. Compared to it, the human-faced demon spider, which also has the ability to devour, can be said to be completely unworthy of mentioning. Suppose there is a human-faced demon spider that has cultivated to the level of 200,000 years, I can easily kill it. But if a dark demon evil god tiger reaches 200,000 years, I may not be its opponent. Even the leader of our 3 heavenly kings of the far north does not dare to let a 200,000-year-old dark demon evil god tiger approach. Hou Yuhao felt stunned. The dark demon evil god tiger is so powerful, even Bingdi is not its opponent. Bingdi snorted, and although he was a little unconvinced, he still said honestly, indeed, the growth rate of the dark demon evil god tiger is too fast, and its devouring ability is hard to defend against. If a guy like Xianming who has no combat power encounters the dark demon evil god tiger, even if it is only a 10,000-year-old one, it can easily take his life, not to mention that this guy has a million years of cultivation. If he is devoured by the dark demon evil god tiger, I am afraid that a beast god of the starred-out great forest will no longer be his opponent. Xianmeng Binkan, who is innocently implicated, said helplessly, Bingbing, please don't use me as an example every time for such things in the future, okay? Bingdi, stop talking nonsense. You said that the aura emanating from that human child is very similar to the dark demon evil god tiger, is it true? Could it be that his martial soul is the dark demon evil god tiger? But the dark demon evil god tiger cannot become the martial soul of a soul master, Xianmeng said, my feelings should not be wrong. That dark aura is exactly the same as the dark demon evil god tiger 10,000 years ago, Hou Yuhao also said at this time, but his martial soul is the evil-eyed white tiger, which has no dark attributes at all. When he awakened his martial soul before, I was watching from the side, and there were so many people there at the time. If it really was a dark attribute related to the dark demon evil god tiger, it would definitely be seen. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466, Poseidon Pavilion Meeting. Xianmeng Ice Silkworm and Ice Emperor are now Hou Yuhao's wisdom soul rings, living in Hou Yuhao's Sea of Spirit. They share Hou Yuhao's memories. Naturally, they can also see Hou Yuhao's memories when he was 6 years old, and they know that Hou Yuhao is right. Xianmeng Ice Silkworm, my feeling is not wrong. That is the breath of the dark demon evil god tiger. However, I think his evil-eyed white tiger martial spirit will be stained with the breath of the dark demon evil god tiger. Maybe there is some strange experience. Hou Yuhao thought about the 5 years that he was completely blank about Dayuns, nodded, and stopped asking questions. The 2 soul beasts in the Sea of Spirit also fell silent. Coincidentally, Wang Yan also came over to talk to him about his second martial spirit. In the fighting spirit field, Duilin also announced Dayuns' test score at this time. Dayuns was slightly relieved to hear that he passed with a full score of 150. Although he had scared the nether wolf away by suppressing its attributes, he realized that he was a strong attack spirit master. He didn't know if he could get a high score by ending the battle in this way. He was still worried that the jury would not let him pass the assessment with the lowest score. Now that the results were out, he took his assessment form from the invigilator, and then returned to the area of Class 1 on the viewing platform and handed it back to Zhou Yi. Zhou Yi was also very curious about how he scared the nether wolf away, so naturally, Dayuns was also questioned. Dayuns really couldn't reveal his second martial soul like this, and even his attribute of extreme darkness was not convenient to reveal, so in the end he could only make excuses and say that it was his evil-eyed white tiger martial soul that suppressed the nether wolf. But Zhou Yi was also a senior teacher at Shrek Academy after all. He might not be as good as Wang Yan, who was specialized in theory, but this could still be seen at this point. However, although she denied Dayuns' statement, she did not continue to ask, because the Spirit Master world is like this, whether it is a martial spirit or a spirit skill, it is basically the biggest secret of a Spirit Master, and it will not be easily revealed. Zhou Yi's understanding surprised Dayuns, but since she did not delve into it, everyone was naturally happy, so after a joke with Zhou Yi, Dayuns immediately left the Colosseum and returned to the dormitory. Zhou Yi also saw that he got full marks in the assessment, which was considered to be a face for the class leader, so she did not pursue him. But in the end, she began to be curious about Dayuns. Here, Dayuns had just returned to the dormitory, and Wang Yan's side, several dean-level figures had already quarreled over Hou Yuhao, and even went to the Sea God Pavilion to hold a meeting. Similarly, after the fierce debate between the Martial Spirit Department and the Soul Guidance Department, Hou Yuhao's identity as a core disciple of the two departments was also determined by Mu Laocan. But the Sea God Pavilion meeting, which was supposed to end like this, was extended because of Dai Yun's. The person who mentioned Dai Yun's was Yan Shaos. He said to Elder Mu, "Teacher, there is another student in the second grade, Dai Yun's, who you told us not to pay too much attention to. In today's entrance examination, he seems to have shown a very high level of dark attributes. I even suspect that he may be the ultimate darkness, another ultimate martial spirit." Hearing the word ultimate again, all the elders of the Sea God Pavilion were surprised, and even Elder Mu raised his eyebrows slightly. Elder Zhuan said first, "Is it the ultimate attribute again? Or is it the ultimate darkness?" Yan Shaos nodded, "Although it is not certain whether it is the ultimate level now, but it can suppress the Millennium Netherwolf to that extent, so it is very likely to be the ultimate attribute." Elder Zhuan couldn't help but ask, "Who? Is it the Dai Yun's?" Yan Shaos, "Yes, Elder Zhuan. I saw it with my own eyes today." Elder Song, who was sitting opposite Elder Zhuan, frowned slightly and said, "But this is impossible. Isn't Dai Yun's from the Duke's mansion? His martial soul should also be the evil-eyed white tiger, which is inherited from the white tiger Duke. How can the evil-eyed white tiger martial soul be of the ultimate dark attribute? Unless he also has twin martial souls." Elder Zhuan looked at Elder Mu on the first seat. "How about I go and confirm it now?" Elder Mu's withered fingers tapped lightly on the armrest of his recliner, then shook his head and said, "No, it's the same as I said before, don't pay too much attention to this child." Zhuan Lao frowned, "But, Mu Lao, that is the ultimate darkness, which will be better than me in the future to suppress the beast God Di Dawn." Mu Lao raised his hand to stop him and said, "Believe me, Lao Zhuan. I know Dai Yun's is martial spirit better than you do." Zhuan Lao was stunned. "Mu Lao, so Dai Yun's is really..." Mu Lao's old face did not have much expression, but a trace of nostalgia flashed in his turbid eyes. He nodded and said, "I'll ask and I'll know." As soon as he said this, the expressions of the old elders who knew about it changed. Song Lao was the first to speak. "Mu Lao, no." Mu Lao smiled, "Although my old bones are about to fail, it's still okay to meet old friends. Okay, let's do this today. Whether it's Hou Yuhao or Dai Yun's, don't bother these two children, just let them stay as they are. Especially Lao Zhuan, and Shaos, you two, don't appear in front of them in the future." Yan Shaos's face became serious and he agreed. Zhuan Lao smiled and said, "Anyway, I will have to train them later. Can you stop me, Mu Lao?" Mu Lao also smiled and said, "Okay, let's go." As soon as the voice fell, the elders and deans who were still sitting in the last second flashed and disappeared in the Poseidon Pavilion. Only Mu Lao remained in the first seat. But then, a strong golden light gradually lit up around him, and the next moment, he disappeared in this golden light. Time came to the afternoon of the second day after Dai Yun's finished the assessment. Because the assessment of the second-year freshman has not been completed, there are no classes in the first and second classes for the whole day. So Dai Yun's has another whole day to practice. But in the afternoon, when he returned to the dormitory after dinner, he found two more things on his desk. One is a badge, and the other is a vermilion gold-stamped invitation. When he picked up the badge and the invitation, he also found a document under the invitation. There were only a few sentences on it. After evaluation by the Shrek Academy Wuhan Department Teaching Office, the second-year student Dai Yun's performed excellently in all aspects. He is now specially granted the status of a core disciple of the Shrek Academy's Outer Academy. He will enjoy the treatment and training resources of a core disciple of the Outer Academy Wuhan Department until he graduates from the Outer Academy in the 6th grade. The signature was Du Whelan, the director of the Outer Academy Wuhan Department's Academic Affairs Office. After reading the document, Dai Yun's eyes were cast on the badge that symbolized the status of a core disciple. He shrugged immediately and then looked at the invitation. 3 large gold-plated characters on the vermilion cardboard. Treasure Appreciation Meeting. The identity of the core disciple get. Mr. Mu met good friends when he met. When Tang Liu revealed that his third martial soul was criticized in front of the master, Dai Yun's would rather die than die. 10,000 years ago, the brothers of Tang San and Tang Liu were killed for the end of the era. Do you guess this scene will repeat the ending in 10,000 years? Is Dai Yun's going to beating the crown and angrily beat the assassin, venting his anger for his brother? If Ma Zia Ateo met Dai Yun's and Dai Yun's would fight to steal the head, If Mazaya Ateo met Daiyuns and fought to steal the head, will Daiyuns fight for Hoyuheo? I don't know either. See you tomorrow. Thank you for your friends who voted for me for a recommendation and monthly votes. It's so porridge for you guys. Chapter 467 Treasure Reward Party. The so-called Treasure Appreciation Party is organized by some big merchants in Shrek City. Isn't our Shrek City a commercial center? Merchants from various countries often trade here. After the merchants in Shrek City receive some good things, they will hold a Treasure Appreciation Party for our Shrek Academy. It is equivalent to letting our academy select them first, and we will auction the remaining ones. At the same time that Daiyuns saw the invitation to the Treasure Appreciation Party, in the dormitory number 108 on the first floor, Wang Dong was explaining the Treasure Appreciation Party to Hoyuheo. There are 3 main types of Treasure Appreciation Fairs. The first type is held for our college and purchased by the college. For example, the rare metals needed by the Soul Guidance Department and the ingredients needed by the Martial Soul Department are all provided by this type of Treasure Appreciation Fair. However, in this type of Treasure Appreciation Fair, there is nothing good except the materials and ingredients that the teachers want. The other 2 types are held for our students. The best one is the Treasure Appreciation Fair held for the Inner Courtyard disciples. It is said that soul bones appear every time. The last one is ours, which is specially prepared for our core disciples. In short, after Wang Dong's hard talk, Hoyuheo finally agreed to go to the Treasure Appreciation Fair quietly. After the 2 of them packed up, they set off from the dormitory together. Daiyuns, who also chose to go to the Treasure Appreciation Fair, set off a little earlier than Hoyuheo and Wang Dong. So after he had been walking around the Treasure Appreciation Fair held in Shrek City for a long time, he saw Hoyuheo and Wang Dong, who were brought in by the etiquette girl in the Treasure Appreciation Fair. Led by the girl in the white dress, Hoyuheo and Wang Dong went to the evaluation department on the west side of the second floor. Although Daiyun saw them, he did not intend to approach them. He turned around and disappeared into the countless display cabinets on the second floor. He did not walk too fast. He would stop and look at the introduction of the exhibits on each display cabinet. He had been walking around like this since he first arrived here, so he had seen a lot of exhibits and found that there were not many good things in this Treasure Appreciation meeting, which were much worse than what he saw in the Wooden House Temple. Apart from other things, first of all, in the Wooden House Temple, he had seen countless soul bones, while in this Treasure Appreciation meeting, the only soul bone he had seen so far was the golden left arm bone. Finally, Daiyuns was a little impatient and decided to go back to the academy first. As for the pursuit, that would happen later. Due to Tang Liu's warning to him, Daiyuns always regarded the things about the timeline that he heard as Tang Liu's warning to him, so even though he knew that Hoyuheo and Wang Dong would be hunted down by the people in the Duke's mansion tonight, Daiyuns did not dare to intervene too much. However, compared to staying here and watching Hoyuheo and Wang Dong being hunted down and doing nothing, he might as well go back to the academy directly. After all, Hoyuheo and Wang Dong were rescued by Mazaya Ateo in the end, right? With such a fluke mentality, Daiyuns walked towards the stairs downstairs. But before he took a few steps, he heard a kind voice coming from beside him. How about the things in this Treasure Appreciation meeting? Daiyuns turned his head and saw an old woman with a head full of silver hair combed into a bun and wearing a green robe, smiling at him. He thought for a moment and made sure that he had never seen this old woman before, so he said, "There are indeed a lot of good things in this Treasure Appreciation meeting." The old woman continued to smile and said, "Is there anything you want here?" Daiyuns glanced at him, and then said truthfully, "Granny, I'm just here to stroll around, and there's really nothing I want. Besides, you see, most of the exhibits here are precious rare metals, and there are some high-grade soul guides, and soul guide drawings. But I'm a soul master, and my cultivation is still low. I can neither use those drawings nor can I use the soul guides here." Then, what do you think of this 1,000-year-old whale glue, a treasure that can improve the physical fitness of soul masters? Daiyuns looked in the direction the old woman pointed, and saw a black block of fat in the display case over there. With his spiritual eyes, he naturally saw clearly the introduction of the black fat substance on the display case, and remembered that it should be the piece of black fat substance in this Treasure Appreciation meeting that was mistakenly thought to be 1,000-year-old, but was actually of a higher grade, and finally fell into the hands of Hoyuheo's 10,000-year-old whale glue. He only took a glance and then retracted his gaze, saying, "Mother-in-law, to be honest, I don't really need these natural treasures that can improve my physique. Just as Dai Yun's finished speaking, he saw the old woman in front of him with a smile in her eyes, and said to him, "Because you have eaten a lot of natural treasures like this before, right?" The third young master of the Duke's mansion. A flash of surprise flashed across Dai Yun's face. He looked at the old woman's smiling face, hesitated, and finally asked, "May I ask who you are?" The old woman smiled gently, but did not answer him immediately. Instead, she looked at Yu Hao and Wang Dong, who were farther away, and said, "Don't be surprised, go and choose what you need. Jubeo Pavilion is the property of the Academy, and naturally knows your situation." It was also the decision of the Academy that Yu Hao got the top card. However, you must keep this matter confidential and must not disclose the relationship between Jubeo Pavilion and the Academy in your respective VIP levels to outsiders. Otherwise, you will be deprived of the opportunity to enter Jubeo Pavilion. As soon as the familiar words came out, Dai Yun's mind began to work. The relevant plot in the original novel instantly appeared in his mind, and he was a little surprised. It seems that the old woman in front of him is the third person in Shrek Academy, a super Douluo with a cultivation level of 97, and one of the elders of the Sea God Pavilion, Old Song. Although he had recognized the other party, Dai Yun remained calm and waited for Old Song to look at him again, then smiled and said, "You can call me Old Song." Dai Yun immediately said respectfully, "Old Song." Old Song's wrinkled face showed an interested look. "It seems that you know me." Dai Yun was not panicked after accidentally revealing the truth, and his expression was still slightly respectful. "I have the honor of hearing your name." As for who he heard it from, he could say that he heard it from Duke Beihu or from Long Xiaoyao, but his relationship with Long Xiaoyao was not convenient to be exposed. Old Song smiled and said, "I'm just curious, so I won't ask you any more questions. Now that you've come to my treasure pavilion, have you ever gone there to evaluate your own discounts and credit limits?" Dai Yun shook his head and answered truthfully, "No. I didn't see what I wanted, so I haven't gone to evaluate it yet." Old Song, so it seems that you don't think highly of this level of treasure appreciation. Dai Yun was stunned for a moment and said, "Old Song, that's not what I meant." Old Song smiled and raised his hand to stop him. Then, like a magic trick, he took out a golden card with 3 blue characters of Treasure Pavilion printed on it and handed it to Dai Yun. "Now, there is a treasure appreciation meeting held upstairs for inner courtyard disciples. You can go and have a look." Dai Yun was a little confused. "Old Song, I'm still an outer courtyard disciple. Can I go?" Old Song stuffed the golden card into Dai Yun's hand and smiled, "Just take this card with you." After that, without giving Dai Yun the opportunity to ask again, a green light flashed, and the whole person disappeared on the spot. Dai Yun looked at the gold card in his hand. It felt like it was made of some kind of metal. It was cold and there didn't seem to be anything special about it. According to the original novel, the top VIP of the Jubeo Pavilion is the red card holder like Yu Hao. So what about his gold card? Is it exclusive to the inner courtyard disciples? Dai Yun shook his head slightly. He didn't quite understand what Mr. Song meant. After putting the card into the storage soul guide, he walked down the stairs. He still planned to leave first and go back to Shrek Academy. As for the treasure appreciation meeting held for the inner courtyard disciples, he didn't really want to go because he really didn't want to buy anything. The author is going home from another place today. I will update once today. See you tomorrow. Thank you to all the friends who voted for me for the recommendation and monthly tickets. Although there are few updates today, I still want to say I love you. Chapter 468, and Knuckle. But the change of human consciousness is sometimes quite amazing. Maybe you just took a step or blinked, and you changed your mind about something you had already decided. And you will feel confused when you react. When Dai Yun walked to the stairs, he suddenly changed his mind and decided to go to see this treasure appreciation meeting held for inner courtyard disciples. He suddenly had an intuition that there might be something he was very interested in and wanted in this treasure appreciation meeting for inner courtyard disciples. So he turned his feet and went upstairs. Worried that he might be stopped, he kept holding the gold card given by Song Lao in his hand. But in fact, he did not encounter any obstacles on the way from the second floor to the third floor, and even when he walked into the third floor. When he arrived on the third floor, he saw a pure white and transparent jade-like finger bone quietly suspended inside the crystal glass in the display case. Dai Yun couldn't help but walk a little closer and looked at the text on the display case. This is an external soul bone for the index finger of the left hand. The first sentence made Dai Yun's pupils shrink. He continued to read, "The soul beast that produced this external soul bone is unknown, and the age is unknown. But after testing, it is found that it has an extremely powerful soul skill. Touching it means death." Dai Yuns couldn't help but open his mouth wide, and his eyes continued to move down to read the last text, but it is precisely because the soul skill attached to this external soul bone is too powerful, so all the soul masters who have tried to fuse this soul bone before have been affected by the soul skill. It is presumed that only those who are extremely compatible with this soul bone or recognized by this soul bone can successfully fuse it. Otherwise, touching it means death. Advice: if you want to fuse this soul bone, please think twice before acting. The price of this soul bone: 10 million gold soul coins. Although this small bone is sold at the price of 10 million gold soul coins, Dai Yuns is not moved by it. On the contrary, the 4 words describing the soul skill attached to this soul bone make him feel incredible. Touching it means death. If this description is true, then if this soul bone can be fused, in a sense, wouldn't it mean that the world is invincible? But although he was shocked, Dai Yuns knew in his heart that it might not be so easy to fuse this soul bone. Just like what was said in the text introducing the soul bone, all the soul masters who tried to fuse this soul bone before all died under the ability of this soul bone to kill people when they touched it. Therefore, although Dai Yuns was a little tempted, he still restrained the greed that suddenly appeared in his heart. Of course, another reason for him to restrain himself was that Tang Liu's voice also sounded in his mind at this time. "Oh, you found the first bone so quickly." Dai Yuns was stunned, looking at the pure white jade-like knuckle quietly floating in the display case, and said, "Is this one of the 5 bones you asked me to find, Tang Liu?" "Yes." Dai Yuns looked at the gold card in his hand, raised his head and looked around, and finally walked to the west of the exhibition hall on the 3rd floor. Like the exhibition hall on the 2nd floor, there is also a place for students to be evaluated here. Dai Yuns put the gold card on the counter and said to the girl in the red dress behind the counter, "Hello." Then he stopped talking, waiting for the girl's reaction, so as to test the effect of his gold card. When the girl saw the gold card on the counter, her expression became serious. She first replied respectfully, "Hello, sir." Then, she took the gold card with both hands, searched under the counter, and looked up at Dai Yuns and said, "Sir, is there anything you want to take away from our Jubeo pavilion?" It sounds like his gold card should be like Hou Hao's red card, which can take something away from this Jubeo pavilion for free? Although he was speculating like this, to be on the safe side, Dai Yuns still asked in his mind, "If I don't have enough money, you will help me make up for it, right?" Hearing this, Tang Liu smiled and said, "Just take it." Dai Yuns nodded with relief, looked at the girl, and said, "I want the external soul bone of the index finger of my left hand." When he said this, he was also observing the girl's expression to see how she would react. As a result, the girl still looked respectful and said, "No problem, Mr. Dai Yuns. I will help you pack it up now." Dai Yuns was not surprised that she knew his name, nodded, and then followed the girl back to the display case, watching the girl open the display case and carefully put the pure white knuckle into the leather bag specially used to store soul bones. Of course, from beginning to end, the girl did not touch the finger bone, and obviously, she was also aware of the lethality of this finger bone. After installing the finger bone, the girl handed the leather bag to Dai Yuns with both hands. As Dai Yuns took it, he heard Tang Liu's voice in his mind, "Put it in your storage soul guide, and I can get it." Hearing this, Dai Yuns paused, then looked to the other side and pointed to a display case there, "And that storage soul guide, I want it too." The girl didn't say anything, just walked over, opened the display case, picked up the storage soul guide that looked very ordinary in the shape of a ring and handed it to Dai Yuns, then said, "Mr. Dai Yuns, this storage soul guide ring inlaid with a 1-carat starlight sapphire is priced at 3 million gold soul coins. Your VIP card can be discounted by 50%, so you need to pay 1.5 million gold soul coins. In this way, Dai Yuns can also be sure that the function of his gold card should be basically the same as Hou Hao's red card, except that it can allow him to enter the inner courtyard disciple-level treasure appreciation meeting now. Another difference is that his gold card can be discounted by 50%, while Hou Hao's is 40%, but overall there is not much difference. In short, Dai Yuns could afford 1.5 million gold soul coins, so he took out a few gold cards and handed them to the girl after collecting 1.5 million. After the girl took the gold cards representing the amount of gold soul coins, she handed the storage soul guide to Dai Yuns. After Dayun's got the storage soul guide, he immediately put the leather bag containing the soul bone into it, and then put it on the index finger of his right hand. After doing all this, he turned around and left the third floor of the Jubeo Pavilion, walked out of the Jubeo Pavilion, and came to the streets of Shrek City outside. It was at this time that he heard Tang Liu's voice in his mind. "So, this alien visitor, what do you mean by this?" Although the young man's tone was still the same as usual, and there was no sense of danger, but a sudden chill still made Dayun shiver slightly. But his expression remained unchanged, and he said, "I have to make sure I have some bargaining chips," even though the young man seemed to have no regard for him at all, and even helped him all the time for so long. Dayun had to admit that he didn't dare to trust him completely. Of course, he wasn't naive enough to think that he could threaten a suspected universe will so easily. He just expressed his attitude. Not everyone is willing to be a pawn at the mercy of others. He didn't want to be Hao, who was later completely arranged by Tang San. And this young man, don't even think about becoming Tang San. Besides, Dayun knew a weakness of the young man. If you don't want Tang San to know you exist, Dayun looked at the figure with short blue hair not far ahead. At this short distance, he could appear behind the other person in just a moment. He continued to say in his mind, "Don't think about this soul bone for the time being. I hurried and I still couldn't post this chapter before midnight. Jiao, time doesn't allow it to play sneak attacks. Is Dayun's sudden action stupid? Hey, let's see what chips he has to do this tomorrow. Thank you to my friends who voted for me." This chapter was originally posted yesterday but was delayed until after midnight. Oh, my bad, I am embarrassed to say I love you guys. 55,555. Chapter 469 Destined and Destined. In his mind, the voice of the young man did not sound again for a long time. At this time, although Dayun's heartbeat was extremely violent, after all, he was now negotiating with the existence of the suspected universal. How could he, a mere soul master, deal with such an existence? But his brain was unexpectedly calm. Even if the young man might appear in front of him the next moment, easily wipe him out, and then calmly take the finger bone from him. Knowing all this, he still did it without hesitation. "I want to hear why," the young man's voice sounded in his mind again, with an interested tone. He and Dayun had the same thoughts, so he could read Dayun's thoughts, and naturally, he knew why Dayun made such a choice, but he still wanted to hear Dayun say it himself. Dayun followed behind Wang Dong and Hao in front of him slowly, keeping a distance that could be reached by teleportation, and at the same time used the bustling crowd around him to cover his whereabouts to ensure that he would not be discovered by Hao and Wang Dong in front of him. At the same time, he also said in his mind, "From the moment I saw you for the second time, I have been thinking about how to get rid of you, whether it is for him, Long Xiao, the Duchess, or all those who are caught in the net, the guidance and arrangement in the name of transaction." Even if the young man said it so lightly, Dayun still felt fear from the bottom of his heart. Especially everything that happened later. The arrangement of the young man for him was directly put on the surface. But even so, the young man secretly arranged a hidden line that he didn't know. For example, from the beginning, it was Tang Qing who was sent to approach him and bring him into the Haoshan sect during the holiday at the end of the first academic year of Shrek Academy. If there is one, there will be two, so in addition to Tang Qing, will there be more hidden lines that were quietly buried by him by the young man a long time ago, just waiting for the day to play a role? These hidden lines are very likely to be stepping stones for him like Long Xiao on the Duchess. But is it possible that among the countless hidden lines that may exist, there is also a hidden blade, waiting to give him a fatal blow at any time? This hidden but real sword of Damocles is one of the things Dayun fears the most. Dayun is a person. It would be fine if he didn't know anything, but from the beginning, the young man made it very clear that everything about you is under my control. And this kind of fate where everything is arranged, as the fate of being a puppet in someone's hand, not many people can accept it willingly. It's like, all your sleeping, eating, working, and playing time are fixed, and you can only do the corresponding time at the specified time. It makes people instinctively feel disgusted. If Dayun had no ability to fight, he might have just swallowed his anger and lived in fear under the threat of the sharp blade hanging over his head. But it happened. It happened that the young man revealed that his existence could not be discovered by Tang San. It happened that the young man told him that because of his existence, his every move could cause major changes in the timeline. It happened that he encountered this soul bone with the ability to kill with a touch today. He knew that Wang Dong was actually Tang San's daughter Tang Liu. So a lightning had long been connected between him and Wang Dong through the conduction of the ground. He only needed to think about it, and he could let the destructive lightning invade Wang Dong's body. With Tang San's protection, his lightning would definitely not be able to kill Wang Dong, and it is even very likely that it would not cause any harm to Wang Dong. However, it is definitely enough to attract Tang San's attention. And this is what Dai Yun's wants. As long as Tang San noticed this place and noticed him, then the young man would not think of staying out of it. Similarly, if he attacked Wang Dong, such an important plot character, what would happen to the timeline? At that time, under Tang San's attention, would the young man choose to get rid of him first to maintain the stability of the timeline, or would he choose to hide immediately and not be discovered by Tang San? In any case, the possibility of Dai Yun saving himself was very small. But he didn't care about this. In fact, he had already made preparations and could transmit the storage soul guide with a finger bone in his hand to Wang Dong at any time. Then, Tang San has obtained a soul bone with the ability of touch and die. Even if the young man is suspected to be the will of the universe, can he still be a match? Judging from the fact that the young man does not want to be discovered by Tang San, Dai Yun is sure that he is not. It is a very simple reason. If the young man is not afraid of Tang San, why would he hide? Very good calculation. Dai Yun's heard the young man's voice again. And, you are not wrong about one thing. Now I must not be discovered by Tang San, otherwise all my arrangements will fail. Your method does have a probability of more than 90%, which will expose me under Tang San's nose. But have you ever thought about it? Dai Yun's pupils shrank. He heard the young man laugh. The energy of the dark demon evil god tiger and the 2 soul bones and you are all given by me. If I do something to them, how can you survive from my hands? Or do you think you can hurt Wang Dong faster than I can kill you? Can the speed at which you transmit that soul bone exceed the speed at which I transmit it? And most importantly, that malicious laughter made Dai Yun's scalp numb and his heart became particularly cold. How can you be sure that all the choices you make now, the choice to threaten me, the choice to resist me, the choice to go all out to gain a little voice for yourself were not arranged by me a long time ago, and that you would have made them at this moment? In front of them, Ho Yu Hao and Wang Dong had already walked out of the north gate of Shrek City. Dai Yun stopped in front of the city gate, staring blankly at the backs of the 2 people gradually going away. His heart no longer beat rapidly, but almost stopped. His brain, which had been calm and clear, was now blank. How can you be sure that this was not arranged by me a long time ago? These words, the words of the young man, kept echoing in his blank mind, mocking him over and over again. How could you be sure? He should have thought of it. That young man, the young man who controls the timeline, the young man who is suspected to be the consciousness of the universe. Since he is suspected to be the will of the universe, since he controls the timeline, then can't he see everything on the timeline? Then what is his resistance this time? A tiny mortal who overestimates his own strength wants to rebel against the infinite universe? No. It's the infinite universe that is laughing at an ant. In fact, he may not be as good as an ant. You will not be affected by the ability of that finger bone to kill you, and I originally planned to keep it for you to play with. Of course, I can only tell you after you clearly understand what you have now. Think about it, if I didn't tell you before, I can get it if you put it in the storage soul guide, then now, would all this happen? After saying that, Tang Liu laughed again, but to Dai Yun's, that laughter was extremely harsh. This finger bone has a good ability. If used well, it will be your current self-defense weapon, and I don't have to worry too much about your personal safety. But don't think about fusing it secretly. If you do that, I will have to cut off one of your hands if I want to take it back later. Now Ho Yu Hao and Wang Dong are about to be in danger. Do you want to help them? Tang Liu's laughter gradually became smaller, and he should be leaving. Before he completely disappeared, Dai Yun said hatefully, "What do I want you to do in order to let me go?" Tang Liu only left him one last sentence. "You did what you did today, aren't you afraid that I will hurt you? All I can tell you is that whether I will hurt you or not depends on whether you dare to believe me." After saying that, his voice completely disappeared in Dai Yun's mind. Dai Yun clenched his fists, his expression gloomy, his eyes full of anger for being powerless. But in the end, he could only accept his fate, and disappeared in front of the gate of Shrek City in a flash. Dai Yun's impotent rage. JPG Tang Liu, sigh, the person who traveled over there thinks too much? Obviously, all the benefits have been thrown at him, but he still wants to overthrow me. Alice, I am old, and this person is not easy to lead. Dayun's, dirty words %x at, middle finger. Chapter 470 Escape. Outside Shrek City, 1,000 meters away from the North Gate, Ho Yuhao and Wang Dong were walking in the countryside outside the city. Yuhao, there is murderous intent, directed at you. They walked slowly towards Shrek Academy, chatting and talking about the golden left arm bone they had exchanged for it at the treasure appreciation meeting, as well as the piece of 10,000-year whale glue. Suddenly, the voice of Xianmeng Ice Silkworm sounded in Ho Yuhao's mind. Ho Yuhao, who was reminded, was only slightly stunned for a moment, and then returned to normal. He continued to walk forward with Wang Dong as if nothing had happened, and the topic they talked about did not change. But secretly, Ho Yuhao had quietly turned on the spiritual detection and shared it with Wang Dong beside him. Although Wang Dong, who received the spiritual sharing, was also stunned, he still maintained a nonchalant look like Ho Yuhao. After walking 2 steps forward, Ho Yuhao took the initiative to hold Wang Dong's hand, and the soul power in the two of them immediately communicated and blended with each other to form the power of Haodong. While walking forward at the same speed, Ho Yuhao lowered his voice and said to Wang Dong beside him, "There are people ahead who want to ambush us. This place is farther from the academy than Shrek City. When I shout 1, 2, 3, we will turn around and run towards Shrek City. Do your best, understand?" Wang Dong didn't say much, just nodded gently and slightly tightened Ho Yuhao's palm. Seeing that the distance was almost close, Ho Yuhao whispered, "Ready, 1, 2, 3, run." He immediately turned around and picked up Wang Dong beside him. The light of the soul guide propulsion device lit up behind him, and he took them quickly towards the direction of Shrek City. When the two rushed out for a long distance, Wang Dong's goddess of light butterfly wings also unfolded behind her, and her and Ho Yuhao flew quickly towards Shrek City, and their colleagues were also constantly lifting their bodies. At the same time, the ambushers who were hiding in the dark also showed their figures at this time. There were a total of 6 people wearing night clothes and black masks. Among the 6 people, 5 were Soul Kings, and the last one had even reached the Soul Emperor level. Even though the soul rings of the 6 ambushers were not on the best ratio, their cultivation was solid. On the other hand, Ho Yuhao and Wang Dong, one was a 2-ring Great Soul Master, and the other was a 3-ring Soul Lord. No matter how gifted they were, they could not just cross the gap in their absolute cultivation. Even though Ho Yuhao and Wang Dong had taken the lead and had already rushed out 100 meters, the gap in their cultivation was too great. In a short while, the 6 ambushers were about to catch up. Especially the 3 ambushers with flying martial spirits, the distance between them and the 2 of them was still closing. When they were about to be caught up, Ho Yuhao remained calm, raised his hand, and a ball of red light quickly rose into the air. After more than 100 meters, countless bright gold and red fragments of light exploded in the sky. This was a unique distress signal for the inner courtyard disciples of Shrek Academy, which Fan Yu gave to Ho Yuhao to ask for help. After sending out the distress signal, Ho Yuhao also used the soul guides he made himself. Although the power was definitely not enough to threaten the Soul Kings and Soul Emperors who were chasing them, it was still possible to interfere and slow down the opponent's speed. In this life and death situation, every extra time they had would make it more likely for them to escape from the hands of these pursuers. In short, the 2 who tried their best finally escaped from the hands of the 6 pursuers, just like the original plot, and were rescued by the flame maniac Mazaya Ateo, who arrived in time. Then, it was Mazaya Ateo, the elite disciple of the Shrek Inner Court, who was invincible at the same level and the leader of the current Shrek 7 Devils, who started the battle with these pursuers until everyone died under the terrifying flames of this evil Fire Phoenix Soul Master. Dayun's watched all this happen silently on the wall of Shrek City. He was still a little far away from the North Gate, so Bibai, Su Sanchi, and Jiang Nanan who came later did not notice his existence. This distance was not a big problem for him who had spiritual eyes. He could easily see everything that happened at the city gate. When he saw Ho Yuhao and Wang Dong were successfully caught by Mazaya Ateo, he took back the 3 spirit rings that he had been releasing. He took a last look at the phoenix flames that were constantly erupting over there, and his figure flashed and disappeared on the city wall. He wanted to help Ho Yuhao several times. But in the end, he just clenched his fists and endured it. He had to admit that he was less and less willing to do things that interfered with the original plot. In other words, He dared not disobey Tang Liu's orders again. At least now. He couldn't. Although I expected it, I still feel a little bit sorry. If he chooses to help today, then my assessment will be more than half completed. If you hadn't been instilling in him the idea of not interfering and guiding him to make this choice, would the result be different? Of course. But, in that case, he wouldn't have taken the initiative to jump out of the circle I drew for him, but I would have destroyed the circle I was going to draw for him. In this case, even if he saved someone, it wouldn't be his saving from the bottom of his heart, but just doing it conveniently after knowing what would happen. Excuse me, isn't that what you do? This is also what I'm curious about. Why can I do it conveniently, but he has to help? Very strange. Yes, I can't figure it out. But if he can disregard everything and directly jump out of the rules I instilled in him, then what is the meaning of my assessment? But I hope he can do it, so that I don't have to go through so much trouble and can go back to sleep. It was also on the wall of Shrek City, but it was farther away from the north gate. Standing here were Tang Liu and Jin Shen. Tang Liu finished the last sentence with a pair of dead fish eyes, and regardless of the subtle expression on Jin Shen's face, he waved his hand and teleported the two away. On the top of the north gate of Shrek City, Old Song and Yan Xiaos were standing here with their hands behind their backs. Beside the two, there were several Shrek City defense soldiers. The two chatted with smiles on their faces. Mr. Song, what do you think of Hou Hao and Wang Dong's escape just now? Mr. Song nodded in admiration and said, it was quite exciting. Moreover, if I am not mistaken, Hou Hao also used the domain-type spirit skill. Considering that his martial spirit is the Ice Jade Scorpion, it should be the Everfreeze domain. Originally, I felt a little distressed that these two little guys exchanged a spirit bone from me. But now, I think it is worth it. Yan Xiaos did not comment on the domain-type spirit skills that Mr. Song mentioned. He just looked at another place on the city wall and said, Mr. Song, did you notice Dayun's? Mr. Song nodded, and also looked at the side that Yan Xiaos was looking at now, and said, of course. That little guy came out with the other two little guys, but he didn't leave the city with them, as if he had discovered something a long time ago. Moreover, from the moment Hou Hao and Wang Dong started to flee, he stood there and watched. I also observed him for a long time. He seemed to be about to take action several times, but in the end, I don't know why he held back. Yan Xiaos nodded slightly and said, Mr. Song, did you also give him the touch and dice soul bone? Yes, but he hasn't touched that soul bone yet, so I can't be sure whether he... When it came to the key point, Mr. Song stopped, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his expression. Yan Xiaos sighed lightly, retracted his gaze, and said, like the teacher said, instead of worrying so much, it is better to focus on the present and the future. Mr. Song also retracted his gaze and said in a light tone, so now, someone has paid attention to our disciples. What are you going to do? Yan Xiaos showed a fox-like shrewd smile, but his eyes were full of cold light. The next second, he and Mr. Song disappeared at the top of the city wall of Shrek City at the same time. Mingjian, thank you for voting for me, voting for the recommendation and monthly tickets, and rewarding this book. Today I still want to say that I love your author. Chapter 471 The Taste of Emotion. In a blink of an eye, 2 days had already passed. Early in the morning, Wang Dong walked into the cafeteria listlessly, and then saw Hou Hao sitting inside and eating heartily. Immediately, she was refreshed, walked quickly to Hou Hao, and asked anxiously, Yu Hao, are you okay? Did Mazia Ateo do anything to you? Since he had already thought of an explanation, Hou Hao was not panicking at all. Even if Wang Dong still questioned the fragrance on his body, he covered it up well and Wang Dong didn't notice anything. After dispelling Wang Dong's doubts, Hou Hao asked Wang Dong what the teacher talked about yesterday. Wang Dong said, there was nothing special. Teacher Zhou told us to go to her office before class today. It seems that there is something going on. Not only us, but all of our core disciples have to go. It seems that we are going to have special treatment. After listening, Hou Hao nodded, indicating that he understood, and continued to eat heartily. Seeing that he was eating so happily, Wang Dong also hurried to get some food. After eating with him, they headed to Zhou Yi's office. After knocking on the door of Zhou Yi's office, Hou Hao and Wang Dong walked in together and found that all the core disciples in the class were gathered here. What surprised Hou Hao was that in addition to Xiao Xiao, Lan Su Su, Lan Luoluo, Xiao Jingxun and Zhou Sijin, Dayun's was also in Zhou Yi's office. Does that mean that Dai Yun's is also a core disciple? Although he didn't know how Dai Yun's became a core disciple, Hou Yuhao was sincerely happy for Dai Yun's, because he felt that Dai Yun's was so talented that he deserved the status of a core disciple. So Hou Yuhao couldn't help but walk to Dai Yun's and stand still, and then looked at Zhou Yi. Zhou Yi also looked at Hou Yuhao before she spoke. I called you here today because I have something special to tell you. 3 days later, the outer courtyard will hold a core disciple selection competition. Originally, we second-year students had nothing to do with it, but the academy suddenly decided to let our second-year core disciples participate in the selection. So, you all need to be prepared. After that, she briefly told the 8 people about the content of this core disciple selection competition, and then asked everyone except Hou Yuhao to leave first. After hearing that they could leave, Dai Yun's was the first to walk out of Zhou Yi's office and walked all the way to the classroom to prepare for class. Zhou Sichen and Xiao Jingxun left next, while Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao waited for Hou Yuhao outside the office. After Dai Yun sat in the classroom for a while, Hou Yuhao and the other 2 arrived at the classroom, and the class bell rang at this time. Hou Yuhao still walked straight to the seat next to Dai Yun's and sat down, while Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao still sat in front of them. But what puzzled Hou Yuhao was that in the past, every time he sat down next to Dai Yun's expression would be indescribable for a moment, first silently glancing at him, and then lowering his head to do his own things. Even though many days had passed, Dai Yun's would still have this subconscious behavior. But now, Dai Yun's just remained silent, staring at the textbook on his desk, without any extra expression or more movements. Although Hou Yuhao felt puzzled, he still had to go to class as usual. However, throughout the day, he was quietly observing Dai Yun's, and finally found that compared with the usual, Dai Yun's was more silent today, and his expression would inadvertently hang some gloomy colors. Usually, whether it was Wang Dong, Xiao Xiao, or he himself went to talk to Dai Yun's would answer seriously. But today, he only responded to their conversations with 2 simple actions, shaking his head or nodding. When he really needed to speak, he was also a simple In short, he basically tried to control it within 5 words. He looked so depressed, as if he suddenly had a lot of worries. So after today's class, he invited Dai Yun's during the dinner time before going to the Soul Guidance Department to study. I haven't eaten fish for a long time. How about I grill fish for you later? Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao, who hadn't eaten grilled fish for a while, naturally agreed. But Wang Dong also knew that Hou Yuhao would have to go to the Soul Guidance Department to continue studying, so he said, but you have to go to the Soul Guidance Department later. Do you have enough time? Hou Yuhao smiled and said, don't worry, it's just grilling a few fish. It won't take long. And I'm not going to take care of it. I just want you all to have a taste. After he said that, Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao also felt relieved and prepared to follow him to eat grilled fish. Dai Yun's, who also received the invitation, wanted to refuse, but Hou Yuhao didn't give him the opportunity. After the get out of class, he pulled him out of the classroom first, and Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao followed him. Even though Hou Yuhao has awakened his second martial soul and has the support of the 400,000-year-old Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion's trunk bone, it would still be easy for Dai Yun's to get rid of him. But when he was pulled out, he was just stunned for a moment, and then he let Hou Yuhao do what he wanted, not planning to resist. In this way, the 4 of them came to the Sea God Lake, and immediately began to prepare for the grilling of fish. Since Hou Yuhao had been carrying the stove he used to sell grilled fish last semester, and he also had some raw materials stored, they didn't have to waste time catching fish and making fire, and just had to wait and eat. In the time of a dinner, Hou Yuhao was enough to grill 2 fish for everyone present. The first 2, Hou Yuhao, in the spirit of ladies first, naturally gave them to Xiao Xiao first. Xiao Xiao was not polite, and took them and started eating, praising Hou Yuhao's fish grilling skills as if they had improved again. The next 2 grilled ones, Hou Yuhao naturally gave to Wang Dong. Wang Dong's appearance when eating grilled fish was similar to Xiao Xiao's, but he looked even less presentable, with a circle of oil on his mouth. Hou Yuhao naturally handed the 5th and 6th fish to Dai Yun's. But Dai Yun's only took one from Hou Yuhao, and said to him, if you don't have enough time, grill another one. Eat that one to fill your stomach, and then hurry to the Soul Guidance Department. Don't be late. Hou Yuhao was stunned for a moment, then smiled and nodded, agreeing. It seemed that Dai had actually written down the time he went to the Soul Guidance Department for class, and had just been calculating the time he would take to grill the fish, which was why he reminded him now. Although it was just a trivial matter, Hou Yuhao felt warm in his heart. The satisfaction of having someone care about his every move surged up again at this moment. He extinguished the flame in the oven, put all the things back into the moonlit night of the 24 bridges, and then began to enjoy the grilled fish in his hand. After watching him eat, Dai also took a bite of the grilled fish in his hand. He was stunned after just one bite. The fish on the tip of his tongue was very delicious, with all kinds of flavors blended together almost perfectly, and then exploded on his taste buds. But if that was all, it would only be Hou Yuhao's standard of grilled fish. What really stunned Dai was the taste he tasted, the taste called comfort. That thing that obviously can't be called taste, but it was actually captured by his taste buds. It was like a hint of bitterness in the delicious fish, but when he felt it carefully, he found that it was actually a wonderful sweetness. He subconsciously looked at Hou Yuhao. He found that he was quickly finishing the grilled fish, and now he was looking at him, secretly blinking his eyes and smiling. Although he was speechless, everything was extremely clear. He watched Hou Yuhao finish the last bite of fish in a few bites, stood up, patted the grass leaves on his butt, chewed the fish and said incoherently, "You guys eat slowly, I'll go first, otherwise it will be late." Wang Dong and Xiao nodded while eating, and kept waving to him. "Wang Dong, go, go, we don't need you here anymore." Xiao, "Yes, squad leader, you go quickly, don't be late." Hou Yuhao smiled and nodded, "Okay." Then he looked at Dai, nodded slightly to him, and left. Dai watched his back gradually go away, savoring the aftertaste on his tongue, and looked at the grilled fish in his hand that had only been bitten. Finally, he sighed softly, put the grilled fish in his hand into the storage soul guide, stood up, and said loudly, "I'll take you there." Hearing his figure, Hou Yuhao in front also stopped and turned around. Dai walked up to him and smiled at him. "This is faster." He raised his hand and put it on Yuhao's shoulder, turned around and looked at Wang Dong and Xiao behind him, nodded to them and said, "We'll go first." After seeing the two of them nod, he looked at Hou Yuhao again, looked at the pair of deep blue eyes that were looking at him seriously, and sighed softly in his heart. The next moment, his and Hou Yuhao's figures kept flashing. As the two ran forward, he also teleported their bodies. Although the distance was only 5 meters each time, the frequency was fast enough, which was enough for them to rush to the soul guidance system of the outer courtyard in just half a minute. With Hou Yuhao's guidance, Dai did not find the wrong place, and sent people all the way downstairs before stopping. Dai patted Hou Yuhao on the back and said, "Go ahead, don't be late." Seeing Hou Yuhao nod, he couldn't help but smile and said, "The grilled fish is delicious." Hou Yuhao's eyes were a little surprised, and then he laughed and said, "Thank you." For a moment, the atmosphere was silent. They looked at each other, and no one spoke. Until Hou Yuhao took the lead. Then, "I'll go in." He pointed to the building behind him with 2 fingers and smiled. Dai stared at him, and finally restrained the urge to give the boy in front of him a tight hug. He paused, nodded, and said then watched Hou Yuhao walk into the building in front of him. When Hou Yuhao disappeared, he reached into his pocket and took out a piece of emerald green bamboo. He looked at the runes on the bamboo, and then looked up at the building in front of him. He exerted force with his palm. The next moment, the bamboo shattered into a piece of green light on the ground, and was blown away by the wind. Thanks to my friends who voted for me. Love you guys. The premise of the mini theater, everyone knows what Hou Yuhao and Ma Xiaotao did on the day he disappeared. Funny, this is the timeline where Dai helped Hou Yuhao and Wang Dong escape from the pursuers and helped Ma Xiaotao suppress the evil fire. Dai is the ultimate evil, and the evil energy in Ma Xiaotao's phoenix flame can only surrender. Naturally, Ma Xiaotao did not ask Hou Yuhao to suppress the evil fire, so Hou Yuhao came to Dai and asked him to help him melt the whale glue. Dai, "Why did you ask me, Hou Yuhao?" "Because you can discharge electricity." Dai thought about it and thought it was really possible, so he asked Hou Yuhao to take out the 10,000-year whale glue and control it with telekinesis to float between his palms. After that, lightning appeared on his palms and roasted the 10,000-year whale glue. Under the high pressure of lightning, the 10,000-year whale glue was like encountering flames, gradually melting, revealing its original golden appearance, and at the same time, there was fragrance emanating from it. With the help of mental detection, Dayun's also knew that the whale glue was ready to eat. He used his telekinesis to tear off a small piece and send it to Hoyuheo's mouth. Hoyuheo opened his mouth and swallowed it, and his body became redder and redder. When he ate the whole piece of whale glue, he became abnormal. Dayun's, after eating, go down and practice to absorb it. Well, why are you so red? Are you okay? What are you doing? A male sign, Dayun's, who was knocked down by Hoyuheo, suddenly remembered what the side effects of Hoyuheo's consumption of the 10,000-year whale glue were. But it was too late. Dayun's, fuck, the author only dares to write this far. If he writes any more, this chapter will be gone. Chapter 472 Level 40. The next day. It was still class time in the morning. When Hoyuheo and Wang Dong walked into the classroom together, the seat where Dayun's usually stayed was still empty. Just like the day before yesterday, Hoyuheo was always taken away by Mazaya Ateo, and Dayun's did not appear in the classroom. Of course, the situation today was different from the day before yesterday. No one would suddenly appear and take Hoyuheo away. But until the bell rang, Hoyuheo still did not see Dayun's. He looked at the empty seat next to him and frowned slightly. Soon, Wang Yan and Zhou Yi also came to the classroom. As one of the two head teachers in charge of students' discipline, Zhou Yi could tell at a glance that there was one person absent from the class today. She frowned and immediately called Hoyuheo. Hoyuheo, where's Dayun's? Hoyuheo naturally stood up immediately, hesitated for a moment, and said, Teacher Zhou, I don't know. Zhou Yi snorted, it seems that he has become too powerful. He dares to skip classes. Hoyuheo, do you know where Dayun's dormitory is? Go and find him for me. Hoyuheo agreed and turned to walk out of the classroom. But as soon as he stepped out of the seat with his left foot, he heard two footsteps outside the classroom. The next second, a young man appeared at the front door of the classroom. Hoyuheo looked at the appearance of the young man and was actually lost in thought. The person who came was Dayun's. The moment he appeared at the door of the classroom, he said apologetically, Teacher Zhou, Teacher Wang, I'm sorry, I'm late because of cultivation. Zhou Yi came over, stared at him fiercely, and said, Cultivation? Dayun's nodded, looking into Zhou Yi's eyes without fear. After all, he didn't lie. Yes, Teacher Zhou, I'm late for cultivation. After saying that, he couldn't help showing a hint of joy on his face, looking very happy. At this time, Wang Yan also came over to make peace, and said to Dayun's, have you made a breakthrough? If so, then come in quickly, your cultivation is the first priority. Hearing this, Zhou Yi's expression also eased, and after saying to Dayun's, come to my office after class, he made way for Dayun's to come in. Dayun's also walked back to his seat quickly and sat down. Wang Yan also attracted the attention of all the students in the class to him, and then began to lecture. Zhou Yi stood at the front door of the classroom, constantly scanning all the students below, ready to catch those who were not listening carefully and punish them by making them run outside in iron armor. Speaking of running in iron armor, as one of Zhou Yi's physical training courses, Dayun's naturally experienced it after entering class 1. However, he had a strong physique given by the god-eating evil eye white demon tiger, and his cultivation was high, so the weight of the iron armor Zhou Yi gave him was nothing to him, and he had no problem running in it. But he was very good at pretending. Even if he could run very easily, he would not show off and maintain the average level of the whole class. Every time he ran, he would make himself look sweaty and laborious, just to prevent Zhou Yi from discovering the trick and then giving him extra training. Anyway, this morning's class finally ended. For Dayun's, the only thing that could be considered an episode was that Hoyuheo would turn his head to look at his face from time to time during class. Dayun certainly knew why Hoyuheo had such a strange behavior, but he did not point it out, just smiled quietly in his heart. After the bell rang, Dayun went to the office with Zhou Yi and said before Zhou Yi opened her mouth, Teacher Zhou, can I take 2 days off? Zhou Yi was stunned and frowned and said, the core disciple selection competition will start tomorrow afternoon. Why are you taking a leave now? Dayun said, because I have to get my 4th soul ring. What? Zhou Yi looked at Dayun standing in front of her, and a look of disbelief flashed in her eyes. She stood up and supported her disc with her hands. You are level 40? Really, Dayun's, absolutely true. Teacher Zhou, if you don't believe it, then let me test your soul power. Right. After he said this, Zhou Yi immediately took out a crystal ball for testing soul power and handed it to Dayun's. Come on, try it. Yuns took it with both hands, and the next moment he pressed the crystal ball, he began to inject his soul power into it. The crystal ball soon lit up with a bright light, and the number displayed on it was also jumping rapidly, increasing to 40 before it stopped changing. Zhou Yu looked at the crystal ball in shock, then looked at Yuns, opened his mouth, and couldn't say a word for a long time. Yuns stopped injecting soul power into the crystal ball, handed the crystal ball back to Zhou Yi, and said with a smile, "Teacher Zhou, do you believe it now?" Zhou Yi didn't take the crystal ball for testing soul power level immediately, and blurted out, "How old are you now? Just turned 12 not long ago." "How about it? Did Teacher Zhou break the record?" After Yuns reported his age, he couldn't help but say something. A 12-year-old soul master should be unique on the Douluo continent. Thinking of this, he naturally felt a little proud. Zhou Yu looked at him with a strange look, and didn't tell him anything about the record. She just said, "I still don't recommend you to get the spirit ring now. The core disciple selection competition tomorrow afternoon is really important. As a core disciple, you must not be absent." Yuns originally wanted to take the excuse of asking for leave to get the spirit ring to avoid the core disciple selection competition tomorrow afternoon. Unlike other core disciples, he knows what the competition tomorrow afternoon is for. But there are only 7 places. If he goes, what if the 7 people who will be selected change? I'm afraid that's not a yellow line level timeline branch, it's more likely to be a dangerous red line branch. So Yuns chose to struggle for a while. "Teacher Zhou, I will definitely be back before tomorrow afternoon, you believe me?" Zhou Yi was unmoved, but asked, "What is your martial soul?" Yuns, "Up, evil-eyed white tiger." As soon as those 4 words came out, Yuns began to feel guilty for no reason. Zhou Yi said calmly, "Release it and let me see." Yuns, although Yuns can actively control his god-devouring evil-eye white demon tiger to look the same as the evil-eye white tiger. But the problem is that his current god-devouring evil-eye white demon tiger already has a spirit ring, and it is the kind that will definitely scare Zhou Yi when it is released. Moreover, he does not have a simulated spirit skill like Hao. Seeing Yuns being speechless for a long time, Zhou Yi snorted and said, "I just asked you to release your martial spirit for me to see. Is it so difficult?" Yuns felt that he could not get away with it this time. He sighed in his heart and said, "Okay, Teacher Zhou, actually my martial spirit has mutated. It can't be considered a pure evil-eyed white tiger. My martial spirit now has more spiritual attributes." "Are you and Hao both spiritual attribute spirit masters?" "Yes. But he is a controlled type combat spirit master, and I am an offensive type combat spirit master." "Then you can't get spirit rings. You know how difficult it is to find spirit beasts with spiritual attributes. You will definitely not find a suitable one in such a short time. Listen to me, at least wait until the competition is over tomorrow, and then I will personally accompany you to the Xingdao Great Forest." Yuns, he looked at Zhou Yi's resolute look and realized that he seemed to have dug a hole for himself just now, but he jumped into it without hesitation. In other words, he can't escape the core disciple selection competition tomorrow afternoon. Forget it, just go. At worst, I can admit defeat as soon as I get on the court. Yuns quickly changed his mind and stopped dwelling on it. He said to Zhou Yi, "Well, Teacher Zhou, I will wait until the competition is over tomorrow before I go to get the spirit ring." Zhou Yi nodded, hummed, and decided, "It's settled. Go eat. Don't be late again in the afternoon." Okay. After watching Yuns leave, Zhou Yi sat in the chair and thought for a long time. Then she stood up and left her office. She went up all the way and finally came to the office of the Dean of Studies Du Weilan. She said, "Dean Du, please help me contact Dean Yan. I have something to tell him. I can't write any more today. Thanks to all the friends who voted for me for recommendations and monthly tickets. Love you guys." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473, The Eighth Person. There is the Sea God Island on the Sea God Lake, the Sea God Pavilion on the Sea God Island, and the Sea God Conference in the Sea God Pavilion. Generally speaking, the Sea God Pavilion meeting will only be convened by the Sea God Pavilion Master when there is a major situation on the Douluo continent. It is unprecedented that the Shrek Academy's Martial Soul Department and Soul Guidance Department held a Sea God Pavilion meeting to compete for a student. In general, the number of Sea God Pavilion meetings is very few. After all, it is impossible for major events to happen every day on the Douluo continent. However, recently, the frequency of Sea God Pavilion meetings has obviously increased a lot more than before, and this time, it was also held for a student. This student was also mentioned by the Sea God Pavilion members in the last Sea God Pavilion meeting. It was Daiyun's. At this critical juncture, the reason why the elders convened the Sea God Pavilion meeting again for Daiyun's is obvious. The initiator of the Sea God Pavilion meeting is still the dean of the martial soul department, Yan Shaos. He looked at the elders around him, stood up and said, "Everyone, I just got accurate information that the second-year student Daiyun's, who just turned 12, has reached the 40th level of cultivation. He only needs to get one more spirit ring to become a spirit master. I don't need to say much about the significance of this. It just so happens that there will be a selection competition for the next Shrek 7 Devils tomorrow. According to our current observations of the 2nd to 6th year students in the external academy, the 7 most likely to stand out are already talented. But now there is another one, Daiyun's, who may have the ultimate arc attribute, twin martial spirits, and has cultivated to the level of spirit master at a young age. So, do we need to change the list of the next Shrek 7 Devils?" Elder Zhuan, who has been in charge of selecting and training the Shrek 7 Devils, said leisurely, "Let everyone compete in a fair match tomorrow, and then select 7 from these 8 little guys, right? Or, why not let the spirit guide disciple withdraw and let Daiyun's join? Anyway, there is already a Hoyu Hao, right?" Xian Liner, the dean of the Soul Guidance Department, retorted dissatisfiedly, "Master Zhuan, you can't be so partial to the Martial Soul Department. Our Soul Guidance Department is also an inseparable part of the Academy." Jin Duoduo, who was sitting next to her, also echoed, "That's right, and this is also unfair to K Tao. Master Song is Xian Liner's mother, and she herself is biased towards the Soul Guidance Department, so she also said, in that case, why don't you eliminate one of your disciples from the Martial Soul Department? If Daiyun's has really cultivated to level 40, I think that the talent of that little girl Jiang Nanan must be worse than his, so why not let her withdraw and make room for Daiyun's? Letting the 7 disciples who had already made up their minds to withdraw voluntarily is not a feasible method. I think the current Shrek 7 Devils can already illustrate this problem, isn't it?" Master Zhuan looked at her and said with a smile, "Master Song, what you said makes sense. Then tell me, how should this matter be resolved?" Old Song smiled and said, "Old Zhuan, although you have to eat all the time because of your martial spirit, you can't eat too much and make your brain stupid." Old Song's words successfully made Old Zhuan a little embarrassed and annoyed. "Old Song, what do you mean? Do you want to fight with me?" Others just laughed secretly at Old Zhuan's anxious look, even Old Mu, who was sitting in the first seat. Old Song looked at Old Zhuan, who was yelling at her like a cat whose tail was stepped on, and the smile on his face deepened a little. She said, "Old Zhuan, have you forgotten how our Shrek Academy got started?" Old Zhuan crossed his arms, snorted childishly, and turned his head away, not looking at Old Song, and said, "You can pick anyone on the street to know this. After all, I am an old man like you, so how could I forget it?" Old Song still smiled and said, "Then tell me, why does our Shrek Academy select the Shrek 7 Devils every 5 years? Old Zhuan snorted again. "Isn't it just to participate in the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Fighting Soul competition? Then when our Shrek Academy participated in this competition for the first time, how many regular players did we have at that time, need I say? Of course it's 8, As soon as the word 8 came out, Old Zhuan was stunned. At the same time, the other members of the Sea God Pavilion also had a look of sudden enlightenment. Elder Song looked at Elder Zhuan's sluggish look, smiled slightly, then looked at Elder Mu, who was sitting at the head seat, and said, "Elder Mu, I formally propose to restart the plan that has been sealed for 10,000 years and truly laid the foundation for Shrek's 10,000 years of glory, Shrek Monster Group." Just 6 words, but when Elder Song said it at this time, it seemed to have a special and incomparable magic, which made all the members of the Sea God Pavilion excited. Because these 6 short words represent a legend that no one has been able to break in the history of the entire Douluo continent, from ancient times to the present. It is an irreplaceable myth. Elder Mu sat up straight with a trembling body, then raised his old and withered right hand and said, "Let's vote. I agree to restart the Shrek Monster Group plan." Elder Song raised his hand second. After that, all the members of the Sea God Pavilion on the Soul Guidance Department also raised their hands to express their agreement. Then, the Wuhan department also raised their hands one after another, leaving only Elder Zhuan, Yan Xiaos, and K. Meyer who had not raised their hands to vote. Yan Xiaos frowned slightly, looked at Mu Lao, and said, "Teacher, can Dai Yuns really become the 8th member of the Shrek monster group? After all, the talent of the former one." Zhuan Lao also nodded slightly, looked at Mu Lao and said, "Mu Lao, I have the same worry." K. Meyer did not speak, obviously choosing to follow Yan Xiaos's decision. Mu Lao looked at the two of them separately and smiled. "To be honest, I don't know." Zhuan Lao and Yan Xiaos frowned at the same time. But then, Elder Mu winked at them and said with a smile, "After all, we all know that person. He can no longer be simply described as having outstanding talent. Can there really be another such person in the future? I don't think so. However, Dai Yuns is not bad either. He is a soul sect at the age of 12, which is also the second youngest soul sect in the history of our Shrek Academy. Although his talent is still far inferior to that of that person, it has surpassed everyone on the Douluo continent except that person. In this case, why can't we let him try?" Yan Xiaos nodded and said, "I understand, teacher. I have no questions." After that, he raised his hand. K. Meyer followed suit. In this way, among all the members of the Sea God Pavilion, only Elder Zhuan had not expressed his opinion. His expression was a little serious at this time. He looked at Mu Lao and said, "Mu Lao, although what you said makes sense, I still have doubts about whether Dai Yuns can be qualified as the 8th person of Shrek Monster Group. After all, this position is of great significance to our Shrek Academy. Unless you give me a definite answer, is he the ultimate arc attribute?" The other elders rolled their eyes. Mu Lao looked at him and smiled. "Are you still thinking of asking me?" The serious expression on Zhuan Lao's face disappeared, and he smiled and said, "I'm just curious." Mu Lao smiled slyly. "Okay, if you raise your hand to agree, I'll tell you. Zhuan Lao, the monster group is back again. Will there be another 8-on-8 match this time? Let's talk about the number of words in each chapter. The author used to write about 2,000 words per chapter, and the maximum was about 2,099. Occasionally, the number of words would exceed a little, but it was basically within the 2,000 threshold. Because if you subscribe to the genuine version with this number of words, each chapter is a fixed 10 book coins. I thought it would be cheaper so that everyone would be willing to subscribe to the genuine version ORZ. However, when I read the book reviews recently, some friends wanted to increase the number of words, so the number of words in the recent chapters is in the range of more than 2,300 to 3,000. The author is also trying to change the waters. The author still prefers to be around 2,000 per chapter, which is cheaper so that everyone is willing to subscribe. So if the number of words is increased, unless there is only one chapter a day, like in the past few days, the author will try to write more in one chapter, and update as many chapters as possible at other times, although it doesn't seem to be much cheaper in the end hours, but 10 points per chapter should be more likely to subscribe than 15 or even more expensive per chapter. Recently, I have only written one chapter because I have no inspiration at other times of the day. I can only write smoothly from 9:30 to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. The author is also working hard to write and change his biological clock. The original plan was to write 1,000,000 words by the 25th, but I ended up postponing it because I couldn't write. I haven't updated it before 2400 hours on the 22nd ORZ. Chapter 474 Trials. The next afternoon. With the ringing of the bell, the day's classes ended. This afternoon, Wang Yan taught Class 1, so after the class, he led the core disciples of Class 1 to the Fighting Spirit area. The core disciple selection competition started as scheduled, and Dai Yuns could not escape, so he could only follow him honestly. There are 8 core disciples in Class 1, and there are 5 core disciples in Class 2, including Dai Huolbin, Zhu Huanyu, Zhu Lu, Wu Feng, and Wang Chushan. Together with Ningdian from Class 3, there are 14 core disciples in the entire second grade. When Wang Yan led the 8 core disciples of Class 1 out of the classroom, Mu Jin, the head teacher of Class 2, also happened to walk out of the classroom with the core disciples of Class 2. Dai Huolbin, as the strongest student in Class 2, naturally followed Mu Jin. When he walked out of the classroom, he immediately looked over to Class 1. However, his eyes did not stay on Dai Yuns behind Wang Yan for long. He just swept past Dai Yuns and then fell on Hou Yuhao behind Dai Yuns. Although Dai Yuns did not see it, Hou Yuhao and Dai Huobin made a bet in the previous upgrade assessment, just like in the original novel, and the 2 times of kowtow and admitting mistakes really happened. Naturally, compared with Dai Yun's, Hou Yuhao made Dai Huobin hate him more. However, whether it was Dai Yun's or Hou Yuhao, they did not pay any attention to him. Dai Yun's was too lazy to pay attention to Dai Huobin. Hou Yuhao, on the other hand, left all his attention to Dai Yun's in front of him. And he mainly focused on the half of Dai Yun's face that he could see from where he was standing. Wang Dong, who was beside him, couldn't stand the silly staring look, and couldn't help but poke him with his elbow and said, "Can you stop staring at me like that?" She admitted that Dai Yun's was good looking, but was he as good looking as she was now? But looking at Hou Yuhao's dazed look, she was inexplicably angry. Hou Yuhao looked at him in confusion and said, "Is there something wrong?" Wang Dong was speechless when he heard his answer, and he almost fell down. There was something wrong, okay? In the past 2 days, Hou Yuhao seemed to have taken some wrong medicine. He suddenly had the habit of staring at Dai Yun's face from time to time. He would usually be stunned for a long time, and sometimes he would suddenly laugh stupidly, looking like a pervert, which made Wang Dong feel a little numb. Hou Yuhao frowned at Wang Dong's hesitation. He said, "Wang Dong, what's wrong with you? If you have something to say, just tell me directly." Wang Dong looked at him for a long time with an indescribable expression. When Hou Yuhao felt uncomfortable, he said with a little hesitation, "Hou Yuhao, don't you like Dai Yun's?" Although her voice was relatively low, it still caught Dai Yun's ears. So in front, Dai Yun's, who was walking well, suddenly stumbled. Xiao, who was walking beside Wang Dong, said, "What? Class monitor, you like Dai Yun's?" Xiao Jingxun, who was standing behind him, said, "Huh?" Zhou Sijin, who was standing beside Xiao Jingxun, said, "Huh?" Lan Susu and Lan Luoluo, the 2 sisters, immediately looked at Hou Yuhao with their eyes aglow. Their eyes and expressions clearly said, "I never thought that a guy like you, who looks honest and simple with thick eyebrows and big eyes, could play so many tricks." Hou Yuhao was already a little dazed by Wang Dong's question. Xiao's shouting, coupled with the doubtful or malicious huss, and the gazes of the 2 Lan sisters, made him feel sick. He looked at Wang Dong and Xiao with a painful expression and said, "Don't joke like that. How could I like Dai Yun's? There is no result between boys." Xiao almost blurted out, "Why do you want a result, Hou Yuhao?" Wang Dong, Dai Yun's lost his balance again, and this time he almost fell to the ground. He turned around speechlessly, looked at Xiao and said, "Xiao, don't make such jokes in the future." Xiao smiled and stuck out her tongue at him. Seeing this, Dai Yun's shook his head helplessly and turned back. Hou Yuhao also looked at Wang Dong at this time, complaining, "Wang Dong, how did you come to the conclusion that I like her? No matter how big your imagination is, it can't be so outrageous, right?" Wang Dong also felt a little embarrassed and muttered, "Who told you to stare at me all day long?" Hou Yuhao looked at her speechlessly. "How can I stare at me all day long?" He just couldn't understand why Dai Yun's appearance was different before and now, and he was happy that Dai Yun's was willing to show his true appearance in front of him. Although he might have stared at her for a little longer, how could he fall in love with her? Wang Dong snorted, "It's good that you don't like him. Dai Yun's dislikes you so much? If you stick to him, it will be too embarrassing. I will look down on you." Hou Yuhao opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but finally held back. He sighed and decided not to pester him, otherwise it would make things worse. At the front, the leader Wang Yan could also hear the movements of the 8 disciples behind him. He couldn't help but smile softly, and then said, "Okay, kids, we have to hurry over, in the fighting spirit field." At this time, in the outer courtyard, all the core disciples under the age of 15 gathered here. Among them, the 14 core disciples of the 2nd grade basically accounted for half of all the people present. All the core disciples of the 3rd and 4th grades combined could only compare with the 2nd grade. The 5th grade core disciples came from Bibai, Su Sanchi, and Jingnanan. In addition, there was He Tao from the Soul Guidance Department. These are the majority of the core disciples in the outer courtyard. They will serve as the reserve team for the All-Continent Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Fighting Competition. They will also be the candidates for the next Shrek 7 Devils. They will be selected from these core disciples. Of course, the Academy itself has plans for the future Shrek 7 Devils, and they have even been basically determined. Just like what is said in the original book, if an accident occurs, Then whether this core disciple selection competition counts is just a matter of a word from Master Zhuan. The core disciples of each class stood behind their respective class teachers, quietly waiting for the start of the selection competition. Not long after, Master Zhuan slowly walked over here, and after saying a few words to Wang Yan, he led everyone into the soul fighting arena, walked all the way to the center of the soul fighting arena before stopping, and then announced the rules of this selection competition to everyone. In simple terms, it is a big fight. All the core disciples can play freely within the scope of this soul fighting arena, and the last 7 people left will win. Then, when the students were surprised by this rule that they had never heard of before, Master Zhuan suddenly disappeared and shouted start. Because it was too sudden, most of the core disciples did not react immediately. The only ones who made a move were Dai Yun's and Hou Hao. The two of them released a soul skill almost at the same time, which was spiritual detection. While the spiritual detection covered the field, Hou Hao grabbed Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao beside him, and also wanted to use spiritual sharing to instruct Wang Dong to catch Dai Yun's. However, as soon as his thought was transmitted through spiritual sharing, Dai Yun's figure disappeared in an instant. Hou Hao was only slightly stunned, and then continued to act according to his plan. His goal was very clear. He was looking for his senior brother Bibai, and spiritual sharing also contacted Bibai and He Tao on the field at the first time. On this side, Hou Hao took Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao to act, and on the other side, Dai Yun's had already left the gathering place of the crowd far away to avoid being affected. Even if someone noticed him, because they had to deal with other core disciples around them, they had no time to take care of him and could only concentrate on defending themselves or attacking others. Soon, the first people to be eliminated appeared on the field. They were Zhou Sichen and Xiao Jingxun, who followed Hou Hao, Wang Dong, and Xiao Xiao, but were targeted by He Tao. After the two were rescued by Zhuan Lao, the core disciples on the field basically formed their own teams temporarily. Hou Hao and the other two also came to Bibai, Su Sanchi, and Jing Nanan. At the same time, Hou Hao's spiritual sharing was also connected to Su Sanchi and Jing Nanan. Then he counted and found that there were exactly 7 of them. Hou Hao was stunned when he got this result. His spiritual detection subconsciously began to look for the familiar figure on the field, but to no avail. So he could only put his mind aside for the time being and concentrate on dealing with the other people who were gradually united. As for Dai Yun's, no one came to take care of him for the time being, so he kept wandering outside, occasionally dealing with a few guys who were alone, which could be regarded as helping Hou Hao and others relieve some pressure. But most of the time, he was still in a state of watching the show, silently paying attention to the development of the situation on the field. In his plan, as long as Hou Hao and Wang Dong teamed up to use their martial arts fusion skills, Withering and Brilliance, and the Golden Road, he would immediately pounce on them and make a perfect exit. He is so damn smart. It's almost time. The awkward plot transition period will be over soon. Yesterday I was afraid of the word limit, so I didn't write a daily thank you for the recommendation votes and monthly votes. Today I will make up for the double love thank you to my friends who voted for me, and gave me rewards. Love you X2. How the author may need to write some English and American novels to change his mind, or read other novels for inspiration. Does anyone have any good books to recommend? Otherwise, I will be stuck for more than an hour every day. The feeling of knowing how to write but just not being able to write is really uncomfortable. Cyrillic letter Z. Chapter 475, End of the Campaign. Just as Dai Yun secretly praised his own wit, the situation in the fighting spirit field changed again. First, the core disciples also noticed the threat of Hou Hao's 7 people gathered together, so they unanimously decided to work together to eliminate Bibai, Su Sanchi, Jing Nanan, and He Tao, the 4 soul masters. Even under the powerful firepower coverage of He Tao, and many core disciples were eliminated, the remaining core disciples are still a force that cannot be underestimated. After all, in such a big fight, the first to be eliminated are those who are not strong enough. With the help of Hou Hao's spiritual detection sharing, Bibai, the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex Strong Attack System Soul Master, and Su Sanchi, the Zuanming Turtle Shell Shield Defense System Soul Master, naturally had to resist at the forefront of the team. Bibai was under the protection of Su Sanchi's indestructible shield. With his extremely sharp spear, even if there were a large number of Shrek Soul Masters and Great Soul Masters in front, they could not take advantage of him. Under the combined efforts of Bibai and Su Sanchi, When the soul masters who attacked them showed their flaws, Zhang Nanan's figure flashed out like a ghost, like a cold arrow suddenly attacked from the dark, and like a knife light that was extremely fast, hitting the core disciples who showed their fatal flaws with incomparable accuracy. Although her soft skills did not show much power, every time her slender legs rose and fell, a core disciple would be eliminated and sent out of the competition venue by Zhuanlao. Every time the first beauty of the outer courtyard jumped lightly, various leg techniques were connected freely, and the moves to send off each core disciple were clean and neat, which looked quite pleasing to the eye. Su Sanqi was responsible for defense, Bibai was responsible for frontal breakthroughs, and Zhang Nanan was wandering around, waiting for an opportunity to move, hunting for fish that slipped through the net. Behind them were Hou Hao, Wang Dong, and Xiao Xiao, who followed Su Sanqi and Bibai. Now the three of them are still relatively weak in cultivation, and they mostly play a supporting role. He Tao followed behind the three of them and was responsible for protecting them. Look, Dai Huolbin, Zhi Huanyu, Zulu, and Wu Feng, under the powerful amplification effect of Ningxin's seven treasures glazed tower, came straight towards them. But then, they, along with the many core disciples who were fighting with Bibai and Su Sanqi in front, were temporarily forced back by He Tao's powerful firepower. As a result, among those core disciples, the senior soul master who was good at defense stood up and took the initiative to resist He Tao's fierce attack for all core disciples. The other core disciples also spontaneously stood behind him and followed his steps slowly towards Hou Hao and the other seven. Once He Tao's attack stopped, it would be the beginning of their fierce counterattack. But the next moment, an ancient, dark cauldron appeared out of thin air and blocked their way. At the same time, Hou Hao and Wang Dong, who were behind them, suddenly hugged each other. Dai Yun's, who had been slacking off, was refreshed when he saw this, and immediately rushed to the end of the long line of people. Here they come. Dai Yun's can make a perfect exit today. When the bright light of the Golden Road lit up on the fighting spirit field, it meant that the battle was about to come to an end. Dai Yun's even showed a satisfied smile. He would soon reach the back of the team. If he maintained this speed, he would definitely be hit by the Golden Road in time. Then, Dai Yun's was backstabbed. The one who backstabbed him was a senior core disciple who had basically the same idea as him, but with different purposes. And this core disciple happened to have a soul skill that could hide his body. At the beginning of this core disciple selection competition, this senior core disciple noticed Dai Yun's who quickly left the center of the main battlefield. Then, while everyone was fighting and no one noticed him, he quietly hid his body. He did not run around, but followed Dai Yun's not far behind him, silently watching Dai Yun's occasionally deal with a few core disciples. Of course, he did not dare to get too close, just for a fear of being discovered by Dai Yun's. And he who had been forbearing all the time was waiting for this opportunity. When Dai Yun's was about to approach the team of core disciples, he was at his most relaxed. Even the mental detection failed to detect the approach of this senior core disciple in advance. After following Dai Yun's for so long, this senior core disciple was also surprised by Dai Yun's cultivation. He had never seen Dai Yun's in the 3rd or 4th grade, so Dai Yun's must be a second-year core disciple. It was really unbelievable that he had such a cultivation in the 2nd grade. At the same time, it also made this senior core disciple more determined to eliminate Dai Yun's. So after seizing the opportunity, he did not hesitate and immediately went all out. The only 2 attacking soul skills were all used on Dai Yun's, intending to eliminate Dai Yun's with one blow. However, although the mental detection failed to detect his approach, it still captured the soul power fluctuations when he released the attacking soul skills in the first time, which gave Dai Yun's time to react. Dai Yun's immediately pounced forward, and his body fell while gradually gathering, trying to roll over. Although the senior core disciple was surprised that Dai Yun's had discovered him, he did not intend to stop attacking. What surprised him was that Dai Yun's, who was about to fall to the ground and roll, disappeared from his sight the next moment. Naturally, his attacks fell into the air. And then, he felt someone kick him in the back. The force contained in that kick was very strong. Although it did not hurt him, it still made his body fall forward uncontrollably. At the same time, the long-prepared golden road suddenly shot out, passing through the core disciples lined up in a row, and also through a senior core disciple who fell into the dazzling gold. He instantly turned into golden sculpture. At the back, Dai Yun's just retracted his raised right leg, and looked at the gradually extinguished golden road in front of him. A wave of grief and anger surged in his heart. He had the urge to chase after the senior core disciple and kick him a few more times, and then questioned him, "Who the hell are you? Is there a guy like you who fishes in troubled waters in the original book?" Just when he thought of this, Dai-Yun's thought of the theories of those timelines again, and began to worry whether this was a butterfly effect that he accidentally caused. He couldn't help but feel guilty again. So for a while, he just stood there and didn't move. The battle can be said to be over. Zhuan Lao fell from the sky with a look of shock on his face, and the first thing he did was to remove the abnormal status of the core disciples hit by the Golden Road. For those who have reached the three-ring soul master, they are only temporarily deprived of their martial souls, and their soul power is consumed in large quantities. Lan Su, Lan Luoluo and other second-ring Great Spirit Masters were already unconscious under the influence of the Golden Road. If it weren't for Master Zhuan's timely removal of the Golden Road effect on them, their lives might have been in danger. But no one was seriously injured on the field, so Master Zhuan was relieved. With a wave of his hand, the core disciples who had been eliminated before also fell from the air. Judging from Master Zhuan's appearance, he should be planning to win this selection competition, but now, there are still 8 people on the fighting spirit field. Dai-Yun's has not been eliminated. Bibai, Su Sanchi, Jiang Nanan, He Tao, Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao, all stared at Dai-Yun's. Just like Hou Hao and Dai-Yun's, they all looked at Master Zhuan, waiting for Master Zhuan to deal with the current situation. Master Zhuan first looked at Dai-Yun's, his expression was quite subtle. In the previous battle, apart from the 7 basically determined little guys, he paid the most attention to Dai-Yun's. He also wanted to see how much fighting power Dai-Yun's could show in such a battle, but this kid was just slacking off the whole time, and later seemed to be planning to eliminate himself, but was interrupted by another kid who was slacking off. For a moment, Zhuan Lao couldn't tell how he felt now, whether he should be happy or unhappy. In short, it was very complicated. Seeing that Zhuan Lao didn't seem to want to talk, Dai-Yun's took the initiative to say, "I take the initiative to admit it." Zhuan Lao looked at those who were eliminated. "Those who were eliminated can leave. You 7th A. And you?" After speaking to the eliminated students, he first pointed to Hou Hao and the other 7, and then pointed to Dai-Yun's. Dai-Yun's could only silently swallow the word lose that he hadn't had time to say, and see what Zhuan Lao would say next. However, now there are still 8 people left, which is completely inconsistent with the plot he is familiar with. Did the timeline change because of this? Dai-Yun's thought a little nervously. Oh, I feel something when I write today. It turns out that changing your mindset is really useful, but I'll see you tomorrow. Cyrillic letter Z, thanks to my friends who voted for me and voted for me. You little angels are so cute. I always think that the fighting scenes of the beautiful sister are so cool. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.